What's up, everyone? It's Andrea. Today, guess who's back? Baka again. We get the perfect intro for a Picard and Son sitcom, and we ask the question, what was Bach gonna do with the Duras sisters' knife? Stay tuned.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Shereese, today we are talking Season 7, Episode 22, Bloodlines. This episode was written by Nick Sagan. This is his second time writing an episode. I don't remember which one the first one was.
I do. It was attached. It was the stupid episode with Picard and Beverly who couldn't get away from each other, and it had a bunch of holes in it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to just I want to give Nick Sagan a pass because he's Carl Sagan's son, but this is now the second stupid as fuck episode that we've seen. So whatever, dude. All right. Also directed by Les Landau, who I think did a great job. There were a lot of different strategic angles that we haven't seen in a while, so I was kind of psyched about that. All right, Damon Bach is back with his bullshit, and he's threatening the life of a son Picard never knew he had. I want to say bum bum bum, but right?
Well, actually, I do remember this episode when I was a kid and being like, Picard has a son. That was very shocking and surprising.
Yeah.
And then the whole episode plays out and you're like,
oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. It was... I don't know. Anticlimactic is probably not enough of the word.
I know exactly what it is. It's a Scooby-Doo episode where the ghost is actually just a real estate agent in a mask and some sheets running around a castle trying to reduce the value of the house and nobody, whatever. It's always something stupid like that, like the groundskeeper who loves the property. That's what it is, where it's all these artificial stakes, and then it's you pull the mask off and you're like, oh, whatever.
However, I will say Scooby-Doo episodes kept me completely engaged from beginning to end. Unlike this episode.
Oh, wow.
In the first 10 minutes, I want to hit a 1.5x, and I was like, shoot, they don't have that on Paramount Plus. I was like, where's my speed control? Anyways, okay. Today we have a very special guest. Before we get into any more of our thoughts, and hopefully our special guest is going to bring in that positive energy that Andrea and I are probably not going to be bringing today.
Nope.
So today we are joined by TNG superfan Andy Lipsey. Andy is the co-host of an award-winning podcast called Notable Nostalgia, a show all about 90s film and pop culture from an LGBTQ+ and BIPOC perspective. Be sure to check out episode 80, where they review Star Trek First Contact, where you might recognize a couple of quirky women who were in that episode.
Oh my God.
In addition, Andy hosts an improv superhero podcast called The Averagers and co-hosts a sports podcast called I Like Balls. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be on an episode. I just because I love Star Trek so much. It was I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, a year ago. I was at work, so I just kind of looked for a new TNG podcast, and I found your guys' podcast, and I was like, I love this energy so much, and it's great, and it's just a wonderful podcast. So thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh,
thanks.
First of all, that is so sweet. Thank you. And I did not we were on Notable Nostalgia, which was a hoot and a half. I've re-listened to that episode so many times.
Fun.
It was
By the way,
fun.
When you listen to the episode, if you're listening, if you want to listen to our episode of Notable Nostalgia, their episodes typically are a bit shorter. And then Andrea and I got on it, and we just we kept talking until the tape ran out. Okay. And one of the co-hosts had to be like, ladies, please, there's no more space to record. It will stop recording. And then we were like, fine, I guess we're done. Sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
No, it was really, really fun. The energy is so hilarious. All of the hosts are just fucking hilarious.
Yes.
But I did not know about your other podcast, Andrew. The Averagers, one freaking hilarious name and premise. And I was like, they can't get any better than that until Shereese said, your other podcast, I Like Balls.
You're like, oh, but it can.
The I Like Balls one's pretty funny because I'm not really into sports. I like basketball, but I don't watch football or anything. Because growing up, I remember my dad would tell me, he goes, people who watch Star Trek, those are the cool people. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oh, you were just a nerd. Okay. I didn't know as a kid, though. I didn't really watch sports or anything. But my two co-hosts are really into sports. So I'm just kind of more like the Andy Richter, where I just kind of make jokes throughout the show. And there's a segment where I ask questions because I don't understand sports very well. So it's a lot of fun, though.
Okay, I'm gonna have
that sounds
to
like my
download
life.
that immediately.
I don't understand sports very well. What's going on? Actually, don't tell me. I don't care.
What do special teams do? Even that's totally
it's hard
me.
to watch football because I'm in my 30s. Some of those guys that are just be running and then they fall down. I'm like, if that happened, I would say, hey, boss, I'm not coming in for a week because I fell down at 20 miles per hour and a 300 pound dude fell. This is crazy. It's too violent.
Yeah, a dude the size of a fucking refrigerator cleaned my clock. So I'm going to be out for the next 2 weeks.
And they just get up and jauntily walk off going, hey, guys, let's do the next play.
It's insane. Like, my little nephew is in football. And I swear, when I see kids hit him, it's like, or run into him, it's like running into a brick wall. Like they bounce off. And I'm like, holy moly. Yeah. Like they bounce off and skid. I'm like, oh gosh, this is like not the sport for me for sure. Okay. So since you are our special guest, we're going to start with initial thoughts with you, but I know Andrea has a few questions before we go there.
Oh. All right, Andy, so excited that you're here. 2 questions for you. How did you get into Star Trek or Star Trek The Next Generation? And who's your favorite character and why?
So one of my earliest memories is watching Star Trek with my dad. I remember he would lay down on his side in front of the TV and I would sit on the couch. And I didn't really it was just kind of cool, like, the space battles and everything. And then it's literally been a part of my entire life. So up until recently, I've been super Star Trek, super anti Star Wars. Just got over that.
Wow.
Because my dad's like, hey, you can like both. I'm like, no, you can't. we draw a line in the sand and
and Shereese and I are like, there's room at the table for everybody. The Expanse, we see you. Come on over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I just finally watched the Star Wars movies for the first time like about a year or two ago. They're pretty good. I get why people like it.
Yeah, I didn't watch Star Wars till I was an adult either. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I cannot believe I wasted years of my youth when I could have been watching this. That was my reaction. Like I was really, really into those original 3 movies. I was like, oh my gosh, I missed it. I missed out. I missed the boat. Like these were legit good. Like this is why people like them.
They were ground shaking, like foundational. Now, when you say, Andy, that you started watching Star Trek with your dad, which one was it? Was it TOS, TNG?
It was Next Generation.
Oh, rad.
Really, he was a big fan of TOS. And he told me that when him and his brothers saw Star Trek 1, the motion picture in theaters, he goes, my brother liked it so much that he was kind of weeping after the movie. And he had to have help. Like, I was like, man, okay, I like that.
See?
Yeah.
When people say like men don't cry and this and that, it's like, really? But have you seen some of these like moving moments?
Star Trek the motion picture?
Well, it's not just that, but it's like, people will weep at like, some like groundbreaking moments in like Star Wars as well. And it's like, so tell me you don't have these emotions then, but like now you're weeping at the end of like Obi-Wan or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's moving stuff. Like, I loved Star Trek, the motion picture. I freaking loved it. And the ending too, with like the like, I think it was called the Voyager probe or maybe the Challenger or one of the, it was like one of the like, original like Mercury probes, like landed on this planet and became like sentient and was like lonely. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking thing. Like it is moving. It is.
When I saw Batman versus Superman in theaters, when Wonder Woman comes on the screen and my girlfriend looks at me, she goes, are you crying? And I'm like, no, I've read so many comics and I've thought about this moment.
I'm just dropping onions.
Yeah, there's just like it's like, this is so cool. But yeah, so my dad's been a big Star Trek fan his whole life. And then that just kind of carried on to me. And, we go to Comic-Cons and stuff together still. And we've met a lot of them. So it's a lot of fun. And it's like a family thing. And my daughter's like Star Trek now. And so,
Oh, that's so cool. You're passing it on to the next generation as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
favorite character, right? So favorite character and why?
Oh, this is so tough. So I've been thinking about this for like 2 days. And if you ask me next month, it might change just because I like all of them so much.
I know.
As of this moment,
I don't care for Barclay.
Well, like
airlock.
I don't like the Doctor who replaced Crusher. Whatever.
Pulaski.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, but but I'd have to go Riker, and I think it's just because he isn't like comedy, but I know. So I've had like jobs in the past, and I've been managers, but I know for a fact I'm a better assistant manager than I'm a manager because I can kind of like ease the tension, but I can still kind of be a hard ass, and I kind of feel
you are really good at that.
Yeah, and that's how I kind of feel like Riker is, to where when he gets serious, we need to be serious. But and I don't know, I just kind of relate a little bit to Riker. So and he's just really cool. He's so fucking cool. So I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah,
the
this month
is
gonna be
so
Riker.
cool.
And that was great. That was the first person who said Riker.
Right. I know that. Okay, so when you were talking, and I know the audience can't hear, can't see this, but like Shereese and I just went, whoa! Like our faces both sort of like mimicked each other. We were like, it's the first time we've heard Riker.
Not surprised though. Riker is great.
Yeah,
he is really great. Cool, he is the perfect assistant to the branch manager. He really is. Like
exactly.
He knows how to do all the work. He takes it really seriously, but he has the position where he can bring levity, where the captain's role is much more serious and grounded in the mission at hand. Where like, yeah, Riker is like the party planner for the senior bridge crew, right? And like he throws the most banging parties. He does. For sure. He's just fucking cool.
And Picard may or may not attend.
Yeah.
But like Riker's throwing the party. Yep, that totally tracks. That totally tracks. Okay. Well, now that we have our initial questions out of the way, let's go with initial thoughts on this episode. Andy.
So before I started watching this, just the name alone, I was like, oh, this is gonna be like an intense episode called Bloodlines. I thought it was gonna be a Klingon. I forgot all about this episode. I thought there was gonna be
sounds very Klingon, right?
Yeah, it does. For sure. So I was like, okay, I'm excited. There's gonna be some battles. It's gonna, and I was like, oh, all right, well. It's not
a battle to be seen.
Yeah, but sometimes I kind of
threats of violence, but no violence. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because it's not so high stakes, I guess. I mean, yeah, somebody's life, that is high stakes, but it's not like, hey, all the children on the starship are gonna die too. So yeah. So I was expecting a really intense Klingon episode, and it was like the opposite of that.
That's great for your initial thoughts. Like, oh, I thought this was going to be a Klingon battle episode. Yeah. I would have preferred that, I think. Well, I don't know, because sometimes they do that well, and sometimes they do that not so well. So my initial thoughts were, ugh. That's all I wrote. And then I was like, I should write some more. So then I wrote, I hope my expectations are exceeded by this episode and that it's some kind of hidden gem. And I just misremembered it. That's what I wrote.
She set herself up for success, friends.
Well, it's because it's happened like
success. I meant disappointment.
It's happened like twice before, I think. So now I'm like always hopeful. Like, well, it could happen again, but it hasn't happened again in season 7, I don't think. What about you, Andrea? Thoughts on this episode before you started watching it, before you hit play?
I wrote, this tired old rag again. Damon, can you just focus on profits and shit? Like, this is a dead end road. Okay, stop. I understand. Like, it seems really sad. It's like, yes, your son was killed in a very unfortunate run-in with Picard. That was a misunderstanding. But like, yeah, dude, you tried this in season 1 and it failed miserably. And now you've come back with like an even worse plan. Now, to speak to Andrew's point, you're right. Like, there are no stakes. There are stakes where it's like Damon Bach is threatening Picard's son's life. But the reason I think that there are no stakes to it is because it's a character we just met. Mm-hmm. We just met him. Like, we don't know him at all. So if he died, it'd be like, you have a son? Really? Wow. He was killed? Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Okay. Yeah. Moving on. Like, we don't know him. And he's not super likable, especially the first like
that's
2/3 of the episode.
Other thing, I think.
Okay, so something bad happens to him, like that sucks, but whatever.
Yeah, because last week when we had Kimtar,
yeah,
I loved him. Like, that was a new character that was just introduced for one episode. He wasn't even in the very beginning of the episode. Right? And he was like, so like seeing how he was with Alexander and how he was with Worf, you're just like, I like this guy, and you care what happens to him. Mm-hmm. So it is possible to create a one-off character that we actually care about. Although it's like a little bit hit or miss. But with this guy, it's like the teenage angsty. I hate that trope. Where it's just so angsty and
yeah, like, it felt a lot like that Jono episode where like that kid was taken by those aliens, and
I
now
totally
he's
forgot
like,
about that.
One of them, and he doesn't want to take off his gloves, and he's just like really angsty. Yeah, I think
he's like, I'm an alien. I'm not an Earthling. You're like, buddy, come on.
Yeah.
And they could have just made the character like a teenager, then you would automatically care more for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like, because I think episode 1 is basically like when they take off, with the Enterprise. So 25 years ago, he was a captain, right, of the Stargazer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So they could have just had it 15 years ago and made like a teenager, and then you'd care more about him, and then you'd be like, oh, that's why he's because his mom just, but making him an adult with teenage angst, it's like, okay.
Making him a 23-year-old with the angst of a 16-year-old.
Yeah, it's like,
I was
why?
like, ugh. Like, I don't know. I totally agree with you, because he wasn't super lovable. It was even less stakes. Not that it would be like, who cares if he dies, but it was just kind of like, who cares if we see him again in another scene? It was more like that. Like, exactly. I don't need another scene of this, like, I don't know who you are, Pops. Are you really my dad? I don't need any more of this.
No.
So anyways.
I don't need anybody.
Exactly. I've been doing this on my own for so long.
Beam you back down to your rock climbing then. Toodaloo.
That's another thing, is he kept being like, just drop me off anywhere. I can just defend myself. I know how to. Okay, well, fine.
All
bye.
right, Han Solo. Okay, buddy.
Yeah.
All
right, Sean from Boy Meets World. We get it.
Yeah.
What don't you understand about someone is trying to kill you? Like, what part of this don't you get? How can I say it more clearly? If you really don't care, you can take a shuttle, right? But I'm trying to save your life. So why do we keep having the same conversation?
Yeah.
We already talked about this.
You're not my dad. Maybe. Are you? I don't know. Who cares? Like, okay, dude. All right, buddy. Yeah.
Oof. Wow, that was pretty much the episode. Like, that was it. That was
really
the whole episode.
That was it right there.
Spoiler alert, he doesn't get killed in the end. The end.
Yeah.
Like, that was pretty much it.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. Yeah.
However, there was some cool technology, and we did see it in this first scene.
Yeah.
So we're on, which is the only good thing I have to say about this episode. The technology was very cool and interesting. So we're starting out in the bridge, and there's some object closing in on their position, and it turns out it's an unmanned probe, and the probe looks really cool.
It looks super cool and very Ferengi, doesn't it? It's like the same colors and lights.
Yeah, I guess so.
It just looks ship. It's like kind of copper with like orangey lights. Where I'm like, ooh, that's It felt very Ferengi.
I just looked alien and cool to me. I was like, ooh, how'd they do that? Like, this is probably my favorite part of the whole episode, is every time we saw this little probe. And it was the same scene of the probe, like, sliding into the view screen. It was the same. They just kept repeating it.
It was a cost-saving measure, Shereese, okay?
I'm not complaining. Every time I was like, ooh, it's the probe again. Like, if it would have come out the other side of the screen, I would have been like, what the? Like, if it went from the left to the right instead of the right to the left, and they like mixed it up in any way, shape, or form, I would have been like, what are they doing? So anyways... This shows up, and they're like, red alert, raise shields. We don't know what the heck this is. And it starts shooting this like beam where Data's like, oh, there's this holographic beam coming from the probe. And then Picard says, isolate that bandwidth and let it through the shields. What?
Sir.
We do that. I don't even know how I feel about this. Because we've had so many, we can't beam them through the shield. They're going to have to die there because we can't beam them through the shields. We can't drop the shields because but now we can just selectively let things in and out the shields. We should have done this from the beginning, people.
100%. 100%. Yeah, where it's like, well, also, why are we just letting this like mystery hologram through the shields anyway? Haven't we been hit by enough beams of light that wipe our energy or shit like that? You know,
our souls, impregnate our women, just weird stuff that these balls of light do.
Don't do that. Why don't we have like some sort of secondary containment?
Just blow it up. Where's Worf? Just blow it up, man.
Maybe Picard was like, oh, maybe I can go back to the inner light again.
Right? Yeah. Seriously. It's like, just use normal hailing channels. Just blow that thing up.
Yeah.
If you really want to talk to us, they can call us.
Well, I wish so much, though, the hologram would have been hologram Tupac.
Now, see, that would have been well worth it.
That would have been amazing.
Has to be
just for the cultural significance of it all.
Amazing.
Well, as it turns out, it wasn't even remotely as cool as Tupac, because it's Damon Bach. For 15 years, he's been trying to find a way to avenge his son's death, and now he's found it. Jason Vigo is as good as dead. I'm gonna kill your son, Picard. Why couldn't this have been like a subspace communication? Why are we going through all this trouble of like a probe and a hologram and then all that? Like, you could have this could have been an email. It could have been an email. Seriously.
Yeah, it seems like a very big, and I wrote, there's no profit in revenge, so I don't understand.
Thank you, Ferengi. Thank you.
Like I don't get it. And I get he wants revenge. Like, that makes sense. And for all the other Ferengi we see on the show, profit is like their highest value. And there's no profit in this. So I'm like, if they could have tied it to profit somehow, like not just pure revenge, but like in Stargazer, like in that episode when we first saw Damon Bach, he was with the Stargazer. He was trying or had convinced his crew or something that they were going to like steal the Enterprise and like sell it. So I'm like, okay, well then you're getting revenge, and you also get a starship, and you get to sell it, and like that kind of ties into your core values. But this is like those supervillains in comics who are just like, I'm going to destroy the city, and you're like, why? because I'm evil. And you're like, okay, but like you need more than that. Even
Where's
if you're
your
a villain, you
backstory?
yeah, you need a little more than that. Like, oh, everybody in the city was mean to me, so I'm gonna get revenge. Or there's this gold in the center of this bank in the center of town. I have to melt everything to get the gold. Something you gotta have a little bit more than just like pure revenge, because people are more
You're trying to steal
than that.
Gringotts bank just for the vaults. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But just to be like, I'm going to destroy the bank. Why? Because
I hate banks. Okay, that doesn't make it. So, anyways,
it's not going to increase your credit score, Damon. Sorry.
I don't understand. How would Bach even get this information that Picard hooked up with this lady 24 years ago?
Thank you. That was also not explained.
You know how hard that would be to get? Because Picard doesn't seem like one to be like, hey guys, you know what I mean? Like,
it wasn't on his blog.
Yeah. How would he get information? How would he know? Maybe he had some shore leave or whatever. I mean, it's so confusing. I don't get it at all.
Yes, Andy. And the other thing is, we find out in the episode that Picard and this woman, Miranda Vigo, had a 2-week fling. It wasn't like they were engaged. It wasn't like they had been together for 4 years. This was off because he went on to the Federation and had to take his captaincy on the Stargazer.
He was with Vosh longer than Miranda. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So like, it's not even, because if it was he had been with someone for years, like they were gonna get married and then it all fell apart because of his career, you'd be like, okay, well, everybody knows that. But this is like some girl he hooked up with one spring break. How did anyone know that?
24 years ago too. It's so long. Yeah, I don't understand that part.
Who keeps track of these things? There was no social media.
Much less Ferengi, who have like not strong relations with the Federation. So like, how would you have access to the information? You're so right. So like,
so many questions.
It goes to credits because it's like, I'm gonna kill Jason Vigo, and we're like, who's Jason Vigo? Like, okay, so
cool name though.
Yeah, it's a very cool name. Like this is a good origin story for like a dark superhero, like an anti-hero or something. But anyway, Miranda Vigo was an old girlfriend of Picard's. Scratch that, she was an old 2-week fling of Picard. Okay.
Scratch that, she was like a good one night stand of Picard's.
Yeah. And so exactly. So, Will comes to like tell Picard, like, we're on our way to Cambor 5 or whatever. That's like our best bet to go there. And I love that Picard has this sort of like moment of like some depth where he's like, I think you have a right to know, Will. Does he?
That's what I wrote. That's what I wrote in my notes. I said, no, he doesn't. Why does he need to know who you hooked up with? He doesn't even know who you hooked up with yesterday.
For 2 weeks, 24 years ago. Yeah.
This is none of Riker's business at all. I was like, this is between you and Miranda, boo. Like, this has nothing to do with Riker. Like, granted,
so like,
which is super sad. Yeah, but granted, like, granted, you're taking the entire ship to Cambor 5, so like I can understand the rest of the bridge crew being like, what's going on there? But we just saw on the bridge that Damon Bach is going to kill this kid, so we're kind of like we're invested in this. We want to save this kid's life. Okay,
right. Everybody's already at battle stations, like getting ready to work, and Picard's like, I have an announcement to make. You don't need to, buddy. Like, we're already going. We're already going.
The bosun's whistle goes.
Like, Picard is such a good actor. That little monologue he gives to Riker, though, when you can feel the pain and the and the sadness and the eyes. I wrote that in so many.
Love you, Patrick Stewart.
Great Picard is, and
he's so great.
Maybe he wanted to talk about it, but he didn't really know how to start it. So he's like,
"That's what Troy is for."
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but like people who are not super in touch with their emotions don't always have that like EQ to be like, I feel like I want to talk about this, so I'm going to find somebody to talk. Sometimes they're like, the nearest available body is the person who's going to hear this whole backstory, right? And they like,
just Forrest Gump it.
Yeah, I'm trying to run like a sensor array sweep, and like, you're talking to me about this. Yeah, so he says there is a possibility that the boy is my son. Miranda and I had an intense 2-week fling while on shore leave on Earth. He never heard word from Miranda about the pregnancy, so it's possible she decided to raise him alone and not say anything because she was very strong-willed. And I was like, that's pretty fucked up. Because I feel like people have a right to know that you've got a kid somewhere.
Yes, I would want to know.
You're like,
if I was a man, I would want to know every kid that was part of me. Every kid.
Later on, when he's talking to Crusher and she's like, hey, are you doing this for you or are you doing this for Jason? It kind of feel like the way he said it to Jason was like, just letting you know, your mom never told me. It seems like he regrets not knowing. So it seems like he feels bad, and that's a way for him to not feel as bad. So I do think it's him trying to protect himself more than Jason at that moment. Like that little subtlety, how he says it. Like, I have kids. And so I'm like, I wouldn't tell a kid that unless they ask for it, because it's information that's not going to make anything better. It's just going to be like, oh, now I don't know. I felt kind of weird. But I did feel really bad for Picard when he has that stick thing and he's showing Jason and he goes, "Oh, that means nothing because in my world you can't sell it or eat it." Picard looks so hurt.
I know he's trying to do archaeology show and tell.
I was like, "Oh, Picard, I'll look at your stick with you, buddy. It's fine." I felt so bad.
I thought I was like, "Tell me about the engravings." Oh, that's cool.
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but yeah, the relationship between the two of them is rocky and doesn't really improve, and then the episode's over. So that's a really good indication of kind of how it goes at this stage of the game. They're heading over to the planet. Picard spills his guts. They have a really sweet he has a really sweet moment with Riker. It is actually a sweet moment. I just was like, you don't need to tell him this, but it was a sweet moment. And
then not so sweet of a moment with Jason.
Yeah, and then not so sweet of a moment with Jason. So Data basically finds Jason climbing in a cave somewhere, and as they find him, like, they kind of narrow down all the people. They're like, oh, that must be Jason, even though we can't totally tell the life signs because he's like underground or whatever. And then Worf is like, oh, there's some seismic activity. And Picard's like, lock on and beam him out immediately, like before he's crushed by some, earthquake inside of the mountain where he's climbing. So they beam him to the transporter room, and like he is beamed in like in his rock climber stance. Mm-hmm. And that for some reason irritated the life out of me because I was thinking back to the episode with Worf and his half brother, and how they were like, oh, we can't possibly do anything for these poor people because of, Prime Directive. So we got to watch the entire planet die, but we're going to do it solemnly, right? It was like no help versus this one kid who's rock climbing where he shouldn't be. And then there's some seismic activity. Get him out of there immediately.
Yeah.
I was so irritated.
To quote you, Prime Directive, Schmime Directive. Okay. This is actually where I had a couple of big, like, what the F moments. One, they're on K-5, they're up in, orbiting, and Picard's like, well, she used to talk about having a farm one day. Like, can we scan for that? Data has the Enterprise scan the surface, which detects 8 humans, 3 of which are females, but are too young to be Miranda Vigo. So now you're telling me that the sensors can scan the ages of the humans, but a couple episodes back, you couldn't scan for anything on the surface because like a fucking cloud was in your way. Really?
Yeah.
No.
There was a slight ionic storm, so we don't even know if there is life on this planet.
We can't tell at all, but it's like, but if you look out the window of 1040, you could see the outline of like cities and lights and stuff, and you're like, well,
people are waving from their balconies.
Yeah, I can see it with my eyeballs through a window. But now it's like, one male between 20 and 30 years old, about 2 kilometers below the surface, and I just was like, I was already done with this episode, and at this point, I just like threw my imaginary pencils in the air, and I was like, fuck this, like I was so annoyed.
That's so funny.
The other thing that annoys me is that they beam Jason on, who's in the middle of his rock climbing stance. And as a former climber, I was like, incorrect. He was wearing gloves, which I was like, no, you just never do. You do not climb with gloves because then you can't feel all the little like intricacies of the rock.
Weird. It does spare your hands, but like you can't feel. Yeah, you can't actually feel the pockets.
Yes,
to actually
spare
climb
your body when you fall down and break your back because you
fall immediately because you can't feel what you're holding on to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And every time they show him climbing, he's got his little gloves on again. I was like, God damn it. Like but that's just like that's a very Frasier thing to be annoyed about. You know what I mean? Where you're like, the camembert is in the wrong place or whatever. Right. But I was like, this right here. No,
they didn't have
that poor guy was like, what the fuck? Like I was in the middle of climbing and now I'm sequestered on a transporter pad. Like what has happened? I've just been kidnapped.
So he's really rendered. He's really surprised, understandably so. And he's like, this is a Federation ship. And Picard's like, yes, it is. And he's like, okay, well, I know I wasn't supposed to be climbing there, but isn't this a little bit above your pay grade, or like below your pay grade for you to be worried about what I'm doing? And that's when Picard drops the bomb that your life is in danger. Someone's trying to kill you. And the reason why is because you might be my son.
The transport chief is like, I'm going to just push buttons really loudly over here so I'm not overhearing this deeply private conversation.
I think I need to run a level 1 diagnostic on something. So
outside in the hall.
Bye, guys.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm going to be in transporter room 13 because this one is taken. Yeah. I'll lock the door.
When he's like, well, just beam me back. And it's kind of funny. And I was like, oh, I wish they would have done a TV show, like an Odd Couple with the son and Picard. So this would be the commercial. He battled with Ferengi, Romulans, and the Borg, but this summer he's taken on his biggest challenge yet: fatherhood. And then it's like those two together. Yeah, exactly. Picard's like, make it so. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, that was
Dad,
genius.
I'm not not going there. I said engage. Like,
Yeah, you will get engaged to her, you know.
The show I would never watch, but that commercial sounds legit. Like,
it's such a bad show. Oh,
Andrew,
man.
I feel like we have just discovered our new podcast wherein we will just take horrible situations from beloved shows and turn them into like into like a commercial intro for another shitty show nobody would watch.
Yeah, exactly.
that's the name of the episode, the name of the show right there, the name of the podcast.
Shitty shows
Shitty
nobody
shows.
would watch.
Mhm.
Oh, I've got a million of those. Yeah. It's this whole thing is so weird. Picard, he does have, you know, a whole bunch of practice in like diplomacy, and he does kind of drop the news on Jason in the most diplomatic kind way possible. He's like, there is a possibility, but I was like, buddy, this is a like, let me walk you to your quarters and explain what's going on, not in a transporter room where like this kid just got kidnapped, right? Where he's like, what am I doing here? What's going on, right? So that didn't happen. They just did it right in the transporter room because privacy, schmiracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beverly takes a blood sample from Jason. They do a little small talk. He's a climber. He's in between jobs right now, which anybody who's looking to date anybody knows in between jobs right now is never a good sign where you're like, ooh, okay. And by the way, did you notice that when the blood test was done, Beverly strung it out in the most dramatic way possible? She wasn't like, it's a match, your father and son. She goes, your DNA is a combination of your mother's, Miranda Vigo's, and your father's.
Long pause.
Jean-Luc Picard. Girl, what?
Yeah.
Maury Povich? Like,
my grandmother watches all these like court shows, and one of them is Paternity Court, which honestly, you cannot stop watching. You can't stop watching this show. It is like crack on the screen.
that sounds like my new trash TV show I need to watch. Yeah.
It's so good. Well, actually, the judge is like not really mean. She's like super nice. So that also helps you be like, oh, she's trying to be nice to these people. Ooh, these people are crazy. But like, that's exactly how she reads out the results every time, because she has to like do it dramatically for the commercial break.
Right.
So it's always like, in the case of 3-month-old so and so and such and such and such. And this is as she's like slowly opening the results and pulling out the paper.
Yeah.
And she goes, you so and so are, and then it's commercial break. And then it comes back. And then she says, are the father or are not the father. But the whole time you're like, come on, just say it. Ugh.
See,
So,
this feels
yeah,
like
that's how she did it.
This feels like the end of like, I remember watching like when American Idol first, like season 1 happened, you know, like everybody was all swept up in it, right?
Yeah.
But like the final episode was just a 2-second thing to be like, Kelly Clarkson, you won, right? But of course they had to string it out into a 2-hour live special. So it was like,
it was a show about all the other previous things that happened on the show.
It was a show about all the other fucking previous episodes of where are they now? And then they're like, let's get the envelope. But first, Kelly, let's retrace your steps from early childhood to your road here. I was like, God damn it. Just say who. Oh my God. I was so pissed. But yeah, Beverly really is trying to do this like Maury Povich
paternity
shit.
court thing. Yep. And she nailed it. She nailed it.
I'd be like, Beverly, can I talk to you for a second? Just over here.
Yeah, you're demoted.
What the fuck, man? What was that?
She could have just
Why
been
you
like
just
thumbs
said it?
up or thumbs down. She could have totally just done that. If I give you a thumbs up, you guys are related.
Yeah.
Thumbs down, you're strangers.
Which I feel like thumbs down, you're related, and thumbs up, you're not. That was quite presumptuous, Shereese.
Well, yeah, you're right. I guess thumbs up and thumbs down wouldn't be as clear as what she did. So in any case, they're father and son, which is awkward. So then Picard shows Jason, to his quarters. And this is where Picard's showing him all his archaeology stuff. And he's like, look at my, let me introduce you to my life so you can get to know me a little better. And Jason is just not here for it. And that's when he says that line of like, on Kmore, if you can't eat it or sell it, it has no value. And I was just like, buddy, you can go to Earth at any time. I don't know. I just did not feel a lot of, yes, he had a really hard childhood and he lives in a really rough place. But in this day and age, which maybe is incorrect, but I always think of this day and age as being very like open. Mm-hmm. Like he is able. Yeah, he's able to get a freighter or something to get back to Earth, it seems like. And if nothing else, he's on the Enterprise now. Like he could just go there. And it seems like Earth is not like just like so impoverished and people don't have food and everything else. It seems like on Earth, people do work for fun. Yeah. Because the government takes care of everything, ? Don't really know how it works, but it seems like no one has any problems. Everyone has work to do. Everyone's, has food. Everyone has healthcare. So I'm like, you don't have to stay on Kmore. Like, you're like one of apparently 9 like humans on this entire world. So maybe move to a world with more humans.
Yeah, 100%.
And then you won't have this problem of if I can't eat it and I can't sell it, it doesn't have value. I have to scrabble from the ground. It's like, okay, but you don't have to.
But you don't have to scrabble. Yeah. You know, I do like that Picard makes this point where he says, I just really want you to know that your mother never told me about you. If she had, I would have been a part of your life. And I was really glad he said that, because that's the other component to not telling somebody that you're having their kid, right? Where it's like, okay, I can raise this baby on my own. I don't need you. But like, again, now you're setting up the child to be like, why the fuck weren't you my parent for the last 24 years?
Where
were
been?
you? It's like, yeah. And it's Miranda's fault in that case. Cause it's like, girl, if you never said anything, this is just a fun, casual, light hookup. And then we each go our separate ways, and thanks for the memories, and like, take care. Goodbye. That's it. Like, you know, so yeah, but Jason is so irritated by the whole thing. You know, Picard fills him in on the whole vengeance thing. And he's like, I hope this time will give us a chance to get to know each other. But Jason is super defensive, which I totally understand. I mean, it also is very much in line with like young actors seeming much younger than their age on the show, like Wesley going out on his first date at 16 years old, but doing something that like a 7-year-old would want to do, like go for ice cream together kind of thing. And so here Jason's like 23 and behaving like a 16-year-old that's like still temper tantruming. But also it's like, you know, we find out later, like your mom was killed in a horrible like attack. You've been on your own since you were 15. Now you've just been like sequestered. You've been rendered by like this ship, and this dude might be your father, but you haven't been there my whole life. So who the fuck are you? Like, there's a lot going on for that kid, which, you know.
His mom did say it's somebody from Starfleet, though. So I wonder if it like did whatever ship Picard was on, was it like a leave? And maybe it's like one of Picard's buddies. And if it's so, you should be like, hey, I don't know. Maybe
you look surprisingly like Riker. Maybe we should do a test on him. Like, yeah. And that's way more likely to be your daddy.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know. I get they probably just had to throw things in to make the story kind of tie together, but like
to make it plausible.
They didn't need to say someone from Starfleet, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, and Jason's just like, we don't need to get to know each other. As soon as this crisis is over, I'm going back to the surface. I'm going back to my life. I haven't had you in my life. I don't need you in my life. And it's kind of like, okay, like if I was in Jason's shoes, I would hope that I wouldn't be quite so angsty. But at the same time, I would totally see not accepting someone as your father just because you had a DNA test 2 minutes ago. Yeah. It'd be like, okay, well, what does this mean for us? Like that would be more my question. Do I want you in my life? And if so, what's it going to look like? Obviously, you're not going to parent me because I'm grown now. Yeah. But maybe we could have some kind of mentor relationship or friendship or anything like, or do I want not like, you know, I'd kind of be like, what does this look like? But Jason is just like, no, just send me back. Just send me back. I can take care of myself. How do you know? Do you even know any Ferengi? Yeah. Like, why do you think this is like, okay, so this trope I hate in those like action movies when like the child gets kidnapped or whatever, and they get kidnapped because they're stupid enough to walk away from the parent who's trying to save them. This is like what this feels like, where the parent's like, come on, we got to go. We got to get out of here. Come on, we got to go. And they're like running through the building and whatever. And the kid's like, no, I want to go back to my friends. I want to go back to my school. And you're like, oh, people are shooting at us. People are trying to kill us.
Leave the teddy bear. Fucking leave it.
Yeah. And they're just like, they take the first opportunity to like run out the door, and then the bad guys snap them up immediately. And you're like, you know what? They deserve to be kidnapped. They were trying to be kidnapped. Okay. They were working towards being kidnapped. That's what they wanted. I felt like that about Jason right here.
How do you really feel about it?
Like, it just drives me crazy. Maybe it drives me crazy because I think it's so stupid that anyone would behave that way.
Yeah.
In that situation.
You're so logical too. You're so logical that it's like, this doesn't make any sense. You know what? Okay. So if a child is ever kidnapped by like a drug lord, you do not want Shereese on the case, because she's going to be like, well, question number one, was the kid asking for it? Maybe. Did they run back?
Was the kid playing with the drug lord when you told her not to? Is that so how it happened? Yeah, no, like, I mean,
okay, we're gonna put your case at the bottom of the pile,
right? Granted, when I've seen this in movies, they're never kids, they're always teenagers.
Yeah.
They're always like 16, 17, which I feel like is this character's emotional age, right? Is like 15, 16.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's what makes it even more irritating, because it's like you're old enough to know better. You're not a little kid. Like, come on.
They kind of dropped the ball too, because it doesn't really fit his character. So where he grew up was really, you know, hard living. So he should try to find a way to benefit from his dad being the captain of the flagship for the start.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't he want to be like, oh, I think the story would have been better if he was like overly eager and like, oh, cool, dad. You know what I mean? And then
or if he tried to get some, or if he was like, well, you owe me a shuttle. Like, or you didn't give me a childhood, you could at least give me a shuttle. Or
and
like,
that would have made way more sense. And I can sell something for some credits and then, buy some more rock climbing gloves and I'll be set.
But you don't even need them. You don't need them. Oh, God.
So anyways, Jason
That's the most annoying part of this whole episode for me was the
Jason is not on Team Picard. So, okay, back in the bridge, which was interesting because I thought we were going to go to engineering at some point, but we just kept going back to the bridge. Like there were very few sets in this actual episode. It was bridge, ready room, quarters. And then that was pretty much it.
Sick bay. Yeah.
And we had sick bay twice.
They had to shell out though. Like the budget did have to shell out for such a top rated actor for Jason to come. I don't know who that kid is. I'm sorry.
I called him Wish Jim Carrey because he looks like a Wish version of Jim Carrey. Like, my notes is Wish Jim Carrey.
Not from Wish. So he was the discounted Jim Carrey.
Yeah, he really was.
He's similar looking.
He was the Big Lots Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
It was as if somebody tried to draw Jim Carrey from memory, and that's what they got. Shereese is dying over here.
Oh my gosh. Well, I thought he was cute. But I thought his behavior was not cute. His behavior was very gross. So anyways, Jordy and Data are trying to figure out where the probe came from. And they're like doing some stuff and, running some tests or whatever to try to figure out where Damon Bach is so they can kind of like, get to the bottom of all this. While they're doing this, Damon Berta calls the ship and is just like, Bach was in prison like 6 years ago and he has not regained his rank, but he bought himself out. He paid his way out of prison 2 years ago, which actually makes sense. Cause I was like, how did he even get out of prison? But with money. Okay. Like that makes sense in the Ferengi. Like
this is Ferengi. Yeah.
Okay.
I love how normal that was. They're like, yeah, he paid his way out a while ago. It's like, so common.
That made more sense than like he escaped or something like that. It was like, oh, he just like bought his way out. Like, okay. So he did not give them very much information, but he did tell them a little bit. And it was actually more than enough of what they needed so that they could figure out the origin of the probe. So they're like, cool, that's all we need to know. Let's go back to where this probe came from. So the ship is off on its way. Picard goes to talk to Beverly in the meantime to get some parental advice. Poor Beverly, only parent on the ship, apparently, because everyone who has parental questions goes straight to her. And
why don't we just go talk to Alyssa? It's like, you also have an infant. How do I get through to them?
Well, because Beverly has had, a teenager, which is what he's dealing with now. So that's where Beverly points out, like, well, he has had 20 years to be angry about his dad being absent in his life. So maybe give him more than like an hour to get used to the idea, And Picard's like, well, I think I shouldn't push him because I feel like I'm just trying to push my like love and attention on him. Like me. And maybe I shouldn't push so hard. And Beverly's like, maybe, but are you doing what's best for Jason? Or are you doing what's easiest for you?
Yeah.
And that's where Picard's like, dang it. Easiest for me. So, but it sounded right. Like when he said like, oh, I just don't want to push, it sounded right. But then when he thought about it, he was like, oh, well, actually
it does sound so right, especially coming right off the heels of like Journey's End, where Beverly was like, my son wants to drop out of Starfleet Academy and like run off with these like native indigenous people. And like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, and this is when Picard's like, if you try to push help on him, you're going to just push him further away. Like he needs to want it for himself. So I could see why, if we're following that sort of train of thought, why Picard felt this way, where it's like, I don't want to push my parenthood on this kid, but also it's more advantageous to Picard to be like, okay, I'll just let you come to me and I'm going to be over here playing my flute for a while you, it's like more hands off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then next thing you know, we're in Jason's quarters and Troy comes by to check on him, which I think is wise because I haven't thought about what's he going through right now. Like I did think Picard should talk to Troy, but I didn't think Jason should talk to Troy, which absolutely he should. So as soon as he sees Troy, he turns on all the charm and starts flirting with her really hard. And she impressively sets her boundaries and is like, I came to talk to you as a counselor. If you don't want to talk to me in that way, then I'm going to go ahead and leave. And he's like, well, fine, then you can leave. And she's like, okay, well, you can make an appointment at any time with my office, and then she leaves. And I was like, wow, that was real good for her. That was like so well done. Like,
scene was so weird to me though. Like, I don't know why they decided to make him kind of like misogynistic because it just makes you dislike him more and it doesn't come back later. They could have just had him like standoffish like he is with Picard, but instead they kind of made him like real sleazy. And then they just go, all right, well, now at the end you care about him. I'm like, no, I don't, because he's been an asshole this entire episode.
Yeah,
like, I don't
yeah.
get it, you know?
That's
Now
because
you're
he's
trying to-
really
yeah.
Riker's son. That's why.
Right,
He's like,
yeah.
ooh, boobies. And he's
Yeah,
like all about
I
that.
don't know why, but the word Imzadi is like coming through my head. And like, maybe you could help me figure out what that means, babe. Yeah, like he would definitely, it felt like that season 1 episode where we had that like roguish scamp who was like fleeing, having to marry the woman he impregnated or whatever. Do you remember that episode?
Mhm.
And like, it's
The
so
outrageous Okana.
That's what it is. Outrageous Okana. Where like I was thinking back watching this scene. I was thinking back to that episode because Okana was behaving the exact same way, and Deanna is kind of like amused by it all. But I was like, this just showed a lot of her growth too, where she's like, okay, so I will come back when you want to talk like a grown up.
Yeah.
You can find me, and this is the perfect place to be like, if you want to talk, you know where to find me, right? Like, she's not related to this dude. Turns out neither is Picard, but like, we don't know that yet, right? So it's like, it matters even less. But yeah, like, this was a great way to be like, if you want to behave appropriately and talk about this stuff, this is what I'm here for. But until then, I have a date with the real Riker, not the discount Riker.
Not the wish Riker. Okay, so that happens.
Poor guy, we're just tearing him up.
I know. But that's a really good
nice.
That's a really good point though about the growth, because in season 1, like we had that episode Neutral Zone where these like anachronistic people were like thawed or whatever. It was horrible. But one of the characters like actually slapped Beverly's butt in sickbay or pitched it or something. And they were just like, "Ooh, hey baby," and all this disgusting like 1960s behavior.
Yeah.
And they were just like, "Oh, you," or whatever. Like they didn't just just deck them or something like I would do.
Absolutely.
So this shows huge growth, not just in the character of Troy, but also in the writers. So like, granted, that was written by fans. That wasn't written by the regular writers, but by the writers to just show that like, oh no, when you have kind of inappropriate behavior, we can just set a boundary and keep it moving. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be a big fight. It doesn't have to be super awkward. You can just be like, oh, well, no, I actually came here in a professional capacity. And if that's not what you want to do, that's fine. You know where to find me. My office is on whatever floor, you know? So I thought that was great. So next thing you know, we're in Picard's quarters. Picard is sleeping not in his uniform. And
thank you. I wrote Picard is clad in appropriate sleep attire and blankets even.
And even blankets. And he's under the blanket, not on top of the blanket.
In his uniform with his comm badge and visor on and his fucking shoes on top of the blankets like a psychopath.
He does have a plant basically on top of his head though. That plant is so close to his face while he's sleeping. I would have nightmares every night.
It's for fresh air.
And I'm one of those tossy turny sleepers, so I roll over like 50 times. I would end up in that planter at some point.
Yeah, that planter would end up on the ground in my I toss and turn a lot too, and it would be like a big slam. It would wake me up and I'd be so pissed. And I'd be like, it was my fault. Why did I put anything in swinging distance where I could have knocked it over in the middle of the night?
I should have learned from the last 3 plants I keep knocking down.
I keep knocking them down. I should have learned. Maybe next time. So Picard is
sleeping. All these discarded planters over the side of your bed. I mean, you don't even bother cleaning it up. Just put another planter on top of those.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I have like no plants in my home. And Andrea has a plant right behind her right now. I think she has 2.
I do.
Actually, that's not true. I have a bunch of plants in my home, but none in my room because all the ones in my room quickly died. So they were removed from my care.
I have one single bonsai tree, and this is the 3rd one that I finally have alive. And I've been working on these for like 5 years. I finally have one. It's like 2 inches tall, and I'm super pumped.
I had a bonsai tree that I kept alive for years, and I did a whole bunch of I'm not very good at keeping plants alive. The ones behind me actually they're fake. So that's easy. I do have real plants in my house, but I keep the real easy care ones that you just throw a handful of ice cubes on them, you know, like every 2 weeks, and it drip waters them, and that's just enough, right? But like the bonsai, I did keep it alive for like 4 years. When I bought it, it was already like 9 or 10 years old. So I was like, oh, cool. But then my house got fumigated for termites, and I was so busy trying to clear all this stuff out, I did forget about the bonsai, and it got fumigated and it died. And I was like,
rest in peace, bonsai.
I know. I was so bummed about it. I was like, Jeremy, like it died. Jeremy dead.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Jeremy. So here's Picard.
Learned after the 3rd bonsai tree.
I know.
I know. It goes in the bonsai tree graveyard.
Yeah.
So next we have Picard in his quarters, sleeping in appropriate attire, when we see Damon Box standing over him and shouting threats against Jason for some reason in the middle of the night. Okay. And then Picard goes to like call security, and when he looks back, Damon Bach is gone. So I was like, what the F was that? I thought it was a hologram. And honestly, I thought it was a hologram. But in the next scene, we're in engineering. So this is the like one time we go to engineering. And Geordi's like, oh, no, it's not a hologram because you would need some kind of source. And then Worf is like, the shields were up the whole time. But we just discovered that holograms can go through the shields because y'all just did that earlier. Okay, whatever. So they're like, oh, the shields were up. Nothing could have possibly gotten through the shields. So I was like, what about that probe that you just beamed in that's like standing behind you? Could that be the energy source for the hologram? Right. That we need to be close? Could that be it? Could it be that? Because we know that came from Damon Bach. Is it that? Should we maybe discontinue? Should we just put that back out in space? We don't need it anymore, do we? That's what I was
all
thinking.
in pieces.
That's what I was thinking. No,
was actually cause. Oh.
No, it wasn't. But that was my thought.
I have some notes about this. Okay, perfect. I was like, oh, maybe I missed that. Okay. All right.
That wasn't it. But they didn't even consider it. They were just like, no, it must be something else.
Well, yeah, Picard's like, is there anything we can do? And they go, no. And he's like, all right, well, they didn't even try to think of a
Just hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah,
let's just put a security team around Jason and we'll just call it good. Like, I think that's the best we can do. We'll just call it good.
Thank you. This is when Picard is like, we don't know if that was a hologram or if it was the real Damon Bach, but we'll just post people with phasers around Jason because he can't possibly be beamed away. Like we kidnapped him from his fucking rock climbing trip. His buddies are still down there being like, hello, are you coming back? Right?
You have the map. We don't work.
We don't even know how to get out of here. You're still down there, like in Tom Sawyer, like just trapped in a cave. You're like,
note to self: do not go climbing with Jason Vigo.
No, don't do that.
So they're like, okay, that sounds good. Worf's going to assign a security detail, and then Data comes up to Picard and is like, hey, so here's all the information you request about Jason's criminal record, and it's just like a bunch of petty crimes or whatever. And Picard is like horrified because he's little Mr. Goody Goody, and he's like, criminal record of any kind? What? But not my son. He's got my DNA. How could this be?
This is what cracks me up. They tried to raise the stakes by making Jason a criminal, but he's a criminal on the same level as Aladdin stealing a loaf of bread. Like, get out of here. Like, the dude is not a threat.
Right. That's
like he's trying to steal
one jump ahead of the hitman.
Ahead of the lawman. That's all. And that's no joke.
I stole some bread and I went rock climbing. I'm basically the worst person ever.
And guys, the bread got left behind when you beat me away, so it's like the cow that washes out.
I'm famished.
Criminal on the level of Aladdin.
You're right. That's so good.
So true. Without the monkey.
Well, speaking of invested, Jason has thrown together a spiffy little vested look and is in 10 forward and is being tailed super closely by security, because Picard asked Worf to do that. And Jason is a little irritated because he's like being followed around like a puppy dog by the security detail. And he's like, guys, I'm just trying to like hit on women and maybe smack some bottoms and get a drink. And could you like watch me from over there instead of like literally breathing down my neck? Right.
I thought that was a fair request. They did seem too close for me.
Yeah. You don't. It's like when you go into a store and there's always somebody who's like real nervous you're going to steal or something. So they just watch you real closely. And you're like, one, I wasn't going to steal. Two, I was planning on buying something from here. But three, now I'm not because you've made me feel like a fucking criminal. So I'm going to put this back and I'm just going to go buy it across the way. But, Jason's real irritated by that. So he's like, can you give me some space? But we start seeing this like hand tremor. And I was like, that's not looking good. That's not looking super hot.
Yeah, I thought so too. And then like his hand starts to shake when he goes to drink his orange juice. He's a grown man drinking orange juice. Why couldn't they give him anyways? Whatever. You know what? I'm just going to keep going. So he puts down his
synthahol as a fucking 10-year-old because it's not alcohol. Like
seriously, like, I mean, he couldn't have some Aldebaran ale or something. Like he's got some freaking orange juice. Why'd you give the kid some milk? Right? Yeah, like, how young do you want us to think he is?
It's worse than that. It was Sunny D. Okay.
Ooh, I used to love me some Sunny D.
I thought he had the shakes because, like, I was like, are they going to make him an alcoholic too? So then I was like, he's a misogynistic alcoholic. Nobody watching is going to care if he gets killed.
Well, and he's only 23. He's already on
this
roll.
Like, they're not writing this character like with any meaning. So
no sympathy there.
How do we make him the least likable person?
Exactly.
And then put his life in danger. It's kind of like, so I watch a lot of crime shows, and there's certain shows where like, someone's always got to die because they're always trying to solve the crime. So you're waiting for the person to die. And there's some of these old shows where like this person comes in and they're just such a dick. And you're like, okay, that guy, it's going to be that guy.
Yeah.
And the reason it's going to be that guy is because there's so many suspects, because everyone hates him, because he's such a jerk.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that with this, where you're like, oh yeah, it's going to be that guy. Like you already know which guy it's going to be. And you're like, you're just waiting for it.
Yeah.
So he puts his orange juice down. He puts his sippy cup down just in time for Picard to come around the corner and be like, hey, buddy, I just thought maybe we could have another little heart to heart. Let's try this whole like father-son thing one more time. And again,
2.0.
Jason's like, hard pass. And can you just drop me off somewhere? Like, I'm pretty sure I can take care of
15 minutes
myself.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Picard's like, I really don't think that's a good idea because of the whole death thing. So just like hang out here for a little bit, buddy, while we try to get to the bottom of this. But while you're here, we can go rock climbing in the holodeck. Won't that be fun? And that's when Jason's just like, I don't see any point in getting to know each other. Like, I'm good. And he just storms off. And Picard's just sitting there so sad. Like his feelings are all hurt, which was like, yeah, it was like, Jason, that was mean. You could have said that differently, but
Also,
he doesn't care.
Yeah, he has a lot of animosity towards this mystery father figure because he never knew who his dad was. But Picard is innocent in all of this. Like, he had no idea he had a son. And as soon as he did, he was like, okay, let me step on the parent train and like get this going, right? And like Picard especially, coming from season 1, where he was like, I don't even want children aboard my entire ship. Even if I don't see them, I will know they're there and I don't want them there. So for him to be like, okay, this is what has happened and I need to step up as a parent, he was doing a really good job. And Jason was just not having it. And it was a lot of Jason's like built up angst. So you're right. Like, it was mean. And Picard was just like, I'm trying the best I can right now. Like, I literally just found out 8 minutes ago that you're my child. Like,
you've had 20 years to stew about this. I've had 20 minutes.
Do you think he's maybe projecting the anger that his mom never told him to Picard since he has no one else to lash out
Of course.
to?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't going to take that out on his mom. His mom was his only parent.
Right. Yeah.
He's not going to be mad at her
yeah.
for her choices,
so
especially now that she's
making me
died.
sad. Yeah, watching this.
She got like the easiest out in a way, where it's like she did this fucked up thing and didn't tell Picard they had a kid. And then unfortunately she was killed, but like she died and then never had to actually like face the music for her choices, which is
But even
so
had
shitty.
she been alive, had she not been murdered in this horrible way, which we find out later, the same thing would have happened. He would have never
probably got her
blamed his mom.
comeuppance.
Yeah, no, like he never would have blamed his mom. His mom was his one parent. His mom took care of, like, he never would have blamed her, even if she was
risk
like
alienating her.
Even if she was like, Jason, it was me. Jason, I did wrong. I should have told him, like, He still would have been like, no. This was on him. Like, he, like, psychologically, he needed that protection. So, like, I get it. And so Picard's really trying hard, which good on him, because it would be a lot easier for him to just for him to be like, so DNA is DNA, but I don't know you. Like, that would be easier. But he is actually trying, which is pretty tough. So now Worf is detecting yet another probe that looks just like the previous one, which is so
Same
cool.
shot.
Same shot, except for this time it explodes and then you see a bunch of sparks. And I was like, ooh, fireworks.
That's what I thought.
Oh, that's so neat. See, that was another thing where I was like, this was fun. Like, I like this part. And then Data's looking and he's like, wait a minute, that wasn't just some regular explosion. That was a light pattern that describes the secret Ferengi code that reads, because Picard's like, can you translate? And he's like, yes, my revenge is at hand. Okay, why did we need a secret Ferengi code in lights that only Data could decipher?
Thank you.
This is the stupidest ransom note I've ever heard of.
Girl, not only did you already do the hologram threat, like in plain English so we all could hear it.
That's why this kid's on the ship in the first place.
Now you wasted a bunch of Ferengi gold pressed latinum to build a probe and then destroy it just to say some sparkles. And if Data happened to be like at the science station looking away, he would have fucking missed it. We would have been like, ooh, Ferengi fireworks, cool. Moving on. Like, it's like, why don't you get the drill team out to wave their flags too? Like,
this could not have been this could not have been more pointless. Like, it couldn't have. This is like him sending a threatening note in a fortune cookie that he dropped off on Vagra 2 that he hopes someone goes by to pick up and opens and then sends to Picard with a freaking in a plastic bottle or something. Like, what is this? This is so like stupid. This felt like to the message.
It totally felt like saying like, hey, here's this wild and out threat. Like, I will find your son and kill him. And then 20 minutes later, squeaking by to be like, hey, Picard, I've got a secret. It's like, you already told us what the secret is.
Hey, Picard,
you know what?
Gonna kill your son. See you later.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the original episode where Damon Bach was on and he kept saying, I'm going to turn it up to level 10, up to level 10, up to level 10 And it felt
Yeah.
just like that, where you're like,
You've already cocked the gun. You don't need to keep cocking it, okay?
yeah, you can only cock it one time. Like, the bullet's there. Why do you keep
It's chambered.
uncocking and recocking? Why do you keep doing that? It's the bullet's ready.
You're gonna kill my son. All right, we get it. Thanks.
Yeah, he's like,
But now you
yeah,
have to-
killing son, blah, blah,
Now you had
blah,
to tell me in
moving on.
sparkly lights. Like, is that supposed to
Okay,
be
that's
even
so funny.
scarier? Because it's not.
Nick
It's not.
Sagan, you are treading on our last nerve. I'm just gonna say.
So Picard is disturbed by this for some reason and walks to his ready room where Damon Bach is sitting in his chair. And
Yep.
he's like, and then Bach is like, if you really want to talk to me, you better not call security this time. But you are not in a position to be, what is going on?
Out
right?
of my
Shoot him.
chair.
Just shoot him.
Yeah.
Where's your phaser? Just shoot him. Like, why are we even talking? Why are
Just
we even
stun
having a
him.
conversation?
Just stun him and then put him in the brig, and then you can figure out where
can
he
question
came
him
from
later.
Yeah.
And if he's safe, then like, now Jason's safe. And there's lots of things you can do. But he's like, okay, since you told me not to call security, I guess I won't. Let's just sit and have a chat. What do you want to talk about? Well, I want to talk about how I'm going to get revenge on you by killing your son. We already had that conversation. What else do you
Anything
want
else?
to talk about?
Yeah.
What do you want to add to that message?
Yeah.
Oh, that your revenge is at hand. We got the sparkly note. What do you
Yeah.
want to add to the message?
What are you trying to add a side salad? Like, we already know the message.
Yes. And then he goes, well, I must be paid. I must be paid. My son's life was lost, so I must be paid with your son's life. Okay. Because Picard says like, killing Jason is not going to bring your son back. This doesn't make any sense. And there's no profit in this, basically. And he's like, well, it's going to be even because it's going to be revenge or whatever. And then he disappears and it looks like he's transported. Like, that's what the little like shimmery glitter looks like. So you're like, okay, but through the shields, the magical shields that nothing at all could get through.
Yeah. And we're like, so he was actually here. It wasn't just a hologram.
So it wasn't a hologram. Yeah. So it was actually his body. That's weird.
Yep. Well, Geordi swings into the ready room and he's like, oh, it looks like Damon Bach was using some sort of subspace transporter. Such devices were abandoned as the research was like unreliable and it was very energy expensive. So in order to beam something through subspace, the object has to be in a state of quantum flux. So they're like, maybe we can recalibrate the sensors to detect subspace signature, and they may find Bach and his ship at last. What is subspace? How is it different than regular space? And like, all transporters beam shit through space. So I don't know how that, but yeah, they were like, we're gonna magic this one up. So
yeah,
you know,
that worked for me.
Pixie dust. Yeah,
that worked for me. I was like, sure, subspace, whatever. But before Geordi comes in, Jason is found having a seizure in his room. So it actually was a good thing that the two security guards were baby ducking him so hard.
Right.
Or else we wouldn't have known he was having a seizure on the floor until Picard came to visit him for a game of Parisi Squares later on that day. So he's found right away. They take him to sick bay, and Beverly finds out that he has this rare, super rare degenerative neurological disorder that Picard doesn't have. And as far as Jason knows, Miranda never had. So she's like, okay, maybe it's like spontaneously developed. So even though it's normally hereditary, maybe it's like a spontaneous mutation in your case. So I'm going to run a microcellular scan, super duper duper deep scan, and figure out what this is. But in the meantime, I have this wonderful little hypo spray here that not only treats the symptoms, but it actually reverses them. I was like, what? You've got some kind of medication that reverses neurological disorders. What about the guy who was Benjamin Buttoning back in season 1? We couldn't have done that where you just like reverse all neurological damage. Like, that's a freaking amazing.
It's 5 years old. Just one too late.
He's the world's oldest 5-year-old. Yeah. So, you know what? Yeah, this whole thing was just so, again, this is the problem I had with this episode. And I'm just going to skip to my final thoughts on this really quick, just because this is where we're at. The stakes are so lacking because it's like, I have a son. He's in danger. We have to find him. Oh, we found him. He's a rogue and he has his berries up. Oh my God. He has this super minor criminal past. We have a heart-to-heart. There's a threat. We neutralize it. Like, it's just like, as soon as the threat is discovered, a solution is given 4 seconds later. And that's why it feels like there is no reason to be concerned at all. Because it's like, okay, so we found a disease. We'll probably treat it and we'll be fine. Like,
yeah, we'll treat it and reverse it in the next few minutes.
So it's like it never happened, which it didn't really. So
when he was having a seizure, I thought Bach was slowly poisoning him in front of Picard. And I was holy shit, this is real dark. And then, so the whole time Picard's like trying to protect him, but it's actually, he's dying in front of him. I was like,
it's too late.
This is like, that would have been a good
100%.
twist.
That would have been a much better twist because you would have been like, he was dead by the time you met him. You're like,
right.
oh, you would have been like, that would have been, but that's not what happened here.
Yeah,
even that little twist.
100%. Like, that's that would have been so much better. And if I were Damon Bach trying to do that, yeah, I would have had like Jason's food laced with polonium for like months before, so that by the time Picard finds him, Picard's like, you're safe and I've got you. It's like, it's too late anyway. Now you just have to watch him die. It's like,
if I was Damon Bach, I would have like probably kidnapped Jason before I started talking about kidnapping Jason. Like, I would have.
Yeah, why did you tell him? That you exactly.
I'm gonna kill Jason Vigo, who's in K-More 5 in the caves of More. Like, what?
Where you can easily
kill him when I find him. Like,
I'm gonna find him,
but we know exactly who he is and where he is. Like, what are we waiting for? Anyways, okay. After Geordi figures out the subspace magic, which I totally bought, I was like, okay, subspace can go through regular transporters and it's so dangerous that it could kill you, which is why we've never seen this technology before and we'll never see it again. Okay, that's fine. So Jason is climbing the holodeck and the security team is just staring at him.
With gloves again.
With the gloves again and a cool climbing outfit. I just wore leggings and t-shirts when I would climb, but that outfit was dope.
That was actually really cool. Yeah.
So Picard comes in and he climbs to the top to go sit with Jason and chit chat. And I was like, so you were the thing with the gloves. I was the thing with like, Picard's outfit is way too tight to be climbing in and he's wearing shiny shoes.
Yep. Thank you.
No
like
way.
Ballroom dancing shoes with the really slippery bottoms.
Yes.
First of all,
he would have done better with no shoes, with just like toes. He would have done better.
Just toes. Yeah. Well, also, I mean, this is the climbing snob in me. I'm like, this climbing was the least impressive climbing I've ever seen. It was a solid VB. It was like, now when you boulder, there's a V rating. So like VB is V beginner or V basic, and then it goes V0, V1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, right? Like professional climbers will boulder at like V11 or 12 or 13, right? Like that's where we're at. At my very best, I was bouldering at V6s, which are really hard. I was like really proud about that. This was such a VB climb. I was like, there's practically a stairway around the back end. You just kind of grab a few things and just sort of scramble up. I was like, okay. But like, I will say,
even a VB is hard in shiny shoes.
That's what I said. I wrote Picard scrambles up as well, but it's much more impressive given he's wearing like those slick soled shoes.
Yeah.
Like
when I started climbing, I couldn't
gloves.
I couldn't do a VB when I first started climbing because I had no upper body strength. But I'll tell you what, I did put on freaking climbing shoes.
Yeah, sure
like
did.
I could not do it with tennis shoes, and tennis shoes have a lot more grip than those shiny Starfleet regulation shoes.
Yeah.
In any case, he made it fine. And then I was like, buddy, you got to climb back down. What happens if you say in program? Do you just fall or are you on the ground?
Oh my God, Shereese, that's what I thought. I was like, do you just stand up on that ledge and say computer and program and then you're just standing on the floor?
Because if so, I would climb a lot higher if I was in the holodeck than I do when I'm in the climbing gym. If I could just be like in program and I'm back on the ground, I don't have to climb all the way back down.
1,000,000%. Down climbing is a lot harder than climbing up, which
it's way harder. And
the thought of climbing anything is so scary to me. Like I can feel it in my chest, just you two talking about it. Like, nope. I don't like camping. I don't like going out in the woods. And I always tell people like humans were out in the woods for like 40,000 years. I don't want to go back.
We've done that. That's like Throwback Thursday.
You're like, Alexa, turn on my electric blanket.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 100% cool with that. Oh, that's frightening.
So in any case,
here I was in my kitchen this morning making fire starters for when I go camping by myself. I was like,
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So here on top of this rock is where they have the heart-to-heart, and we find out that Miranda was viciously murdered like 2 years ago, like not that long ago, 2-3 years ago. Well, he said he was on his own since he was 15. So I guess like 6 years ago or something. I don't know. The math wasn't mathing, but in any case. But I was like, how is he on his own at 15, but she died 3 years ago?
So we don't even care.
Right. In any case, she was murdered bringing food back to this house full of 40 orphans that she was taking care of. So it's like, so now we like care deeply about Miranda, but we still don't super care about Jason because Miranda sounds like she was such a lovely person and so giving and had such a big heart and cared about the orphans and all this other stuff and was killed bringing food back home by these two men who were hungry. And you're like, this is awful.
That's why they moved to K-More 5, which sounds like the kind of place that Tasha Yar would have come from, where it's just like really rough and like edge of the galaxy outpost type shit. But yeah, she moved there because she had read all about the children, the Cardassian children who were like orphaned by, wars and all this shit. So she moved her son to this fucking dangerous place to take care of these kids. And I was like, girl, more care of your own child.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if the father really was Picard, hey, Picard, your son's over here. And look, there's all these orphans. Can you drop us some supplies? Send us a shuttle. I mean, it's your son. Come on, your son. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
Use your resources. Be resourceful.
Have either of you ever seen that movie, Four Brothers? Has
Yes.
like Mark Wahlberg. This is basically the beginning of Four Brothers, but just called 40 Brothers. Same beginning.
I have never heard of this movie.
Yeah. It's
You
like
probably
Mark
wouldn't like
Wahlberg.
it.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
some like they killed Mama, we gotta get them back. And they're
Yeah.
Oh, God.
yeah, but they're orphans that she and
It's
she
like 4
told her
foster
she couldn't get
kids.
rid of. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Foster kids.
Four foster kids living in the hood, and they're all different ethnicities, and their foster mom gets killed like brutally
In like a
So-
grocery store, I think.
Yeah, something like really
Wow,
senseless.
so it's basically Miranda. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Miranda.
Yeah, instead of Four
Yeah.
Brothers, 40
and then they
Brothers.
like go to get revenge against the like, I don't know, neighborhood drug dealers who were behind it or whatever.
Yeah,
Because I think she
something-
was like
yeah.
standing up to the drug dealers, and that's why something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. Something so totally senseless, and they went and like got revenge, and it's you wouldn't like that movie. I don't think, Andrea.
It's not that great.
Nah.
Bad.
Thank
But,
you for the review on that. I'm gonna hard pass it.
It was
but yeah,
good at
thank
it was
you.
good at the time. It was good at the time. Yes, you're right. That is his story.
Yeah.
This is Jason's story. And then you're like, wow, Jason, Miranda sounds amazing.
Yeah, you're not. Picard though, again, when he is
Long
talking
pause.
to Jason, the acting, when it just in his pauses, you can look in his eyes, like just the regret he has and the love for her for
Yeah.
those 2 weeks, and then when it's really serious, and he goes, "And you have this hairline to look forward to." Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it was. I laughed out loud. I thought that was a great way. He sold
was
it
a good line.
perfectly. It was like
Yeah.
comedy class right there. It was just. I have Picard can act so many times in my notes. It's just incredible.
Yeah, that line
really
was really
does.
great. He was like, one thing
Mhm.
is clear. You'll never look at your hairline the
Yep.
same way again.
Exactly.
And they just like pause and start laughing. I laughed out loud
Yeah,
when he
same,
said
yeah.
that. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's hilarious. Cause that's true. He's gonna be like,
Yeah.
ooh, okay, well, let me enjoy this while I can, because I don't know how much longer I'll have it. Which is actually funny because my cousin, the cousin who like shaves the sides of my head, he is a barber. And so he's always like doing cool stuff with his hair. But at one point he had like dyed all of his hair gray because that was like a thing. And so I was like, why did you dye your hair gray? Like people actively dye their hair ungray, like
Mhm.
literally any other color but gray. And
Mhm.
he's like, have you seen my dad? Who, his dad's been bald since probably he was like in his 20s. So he was just like, I'm just trying to enjoy what gray hair looks like on me because I know I won't get a chance to see it in real life. And I was like, that is a great point. You enjoy. So he dyed it all
Yeah.
gray so he can
Knock
see what it
yourself
would look like
out.
with gray hair because he's never going to have gray hair, which
I
is so
just
crazy.
cut my long hair because I'm native, so I always like not always, but I've had long hair most of my life. Not most of my life. Anyway, it's not important. But right before I cut it, my buddy goes, "Hey, you know what you should do? You should make a wig of your own hair. So when you get older, you'll have long hair, or
That's
you
so
can
creepy.
just switch from short hair to long hair every time." And I was like, that's not a bad idea. But when I got my haircut, I was thinking about asking the bartender, what? That's now I have a problem. I was thinking about the barber if I could keep the hair, but then I was like, I wonder if she thinks it's going to be really creepy. Like, why do you want your hair?
You're not the only one to ask barbers that.
Do
So
people do
that
I was like, oh, I'll just leave my hair on the ground.
See,
no, and people do ask their barber sometimes. They say, I want this to be turned into a wig, like for kids or something, right? Because
Yeah,
they'll
I've
cut a
done
lot
that.
of their hair. Yeah, so they'll just be like, I want. So it's not.
I should
At
have
least
lied
it's
and
not
said,
weird
"This
in
is for
LA."
children," and then just use it for myself.
But like if you think about like if you pull your hair, I've done this before. For years I would grow my hair out really long and then cut it to make to do donations to Locks of Love, which is for kids that are going through cancer treatment. And they gather your hair in a ponytail and they tie the ponytail and then they just snip right above the elastic. So you've got like a ponytail in your hand basically. And Locks of Love require, like all these wigs require a lot. You need a minimum of 10 inches of hair. So it's a substantial amount. But once you're holding that ponytail, you're like, how is this thin little ponytail going to cover my entire head? So you would have to like weave one hair into each, like it's just so like,
Yeah.
It's nuts.
when I did some research about it, they need like enough hair from like 10 or 15 people to make one wig. So that's why they're always like looking for donations. Yeah. So it's like, dang, that's crazy. And there's a lot of rules and regulations too. It's like, it can't be color treated hair at all. The ponytail has to be dry because your hair will stay wet in the mail. Like they basically like braid it and then they cut it off. So it's like a braid ponytail. And it gets wet and then it'll like get mildew and then you have to throw it out. So it's like the whole process.
It's a
is like-
process. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
as easy
really
as you would
detailed.
think. Although, it's interesting. You just said that you're native. So we should have had you on last week's episode. Oh, well. I didn't
I
know
know
that.
That was
I
the
didn't know
one
you were
where like
indigenous.
the native American, like indigenous people were being moved
Oh,
and they didn't want to move. And Wesley like ran off with the traveler to something.
Yeah, it was a
something.
really garbage episode, but it would have been nice to have a perspective of someone who is indigenous that we did not have. But Really, that would have been the best part of the show. Like, not the actual episode.
My perspective is Wesley's clothing in the episode when he leaves, I hate so fucking much. I hate what he's wearing.
First of all, I love that you didn't even have to like pause to Google it. You're like, oh no, I know it. And like I was saying the same thing, and Shereese is like, I love that vest. And I was like, I hate that vest.
I can't stand it. I hate it so much when I see him. And I've met him before, and he was so nice, but I should have just started roasting him on that stupid vest he wore. He didn't have any.
Yeah, because that wouldn't have alienated the actor at all. Yeah, he's like, okay, you're hating on me for. He's like, also, I had no say in this. Like, wardrobe just threw me in this vest. Like,
and they paid him an ungodly amount to wear that vest, so he was going to wear that vest, and I do not blame him. Okay, so back in sick bay, Beverly's like, Picard, I need to talk to you about Jason, and it's like, bum bum bum, and the next scene.
Dumb at this moment, because I thought I felt so silly. I put this in my notes. I was like, oh, is Bach Jason? And right after, I was like, "Oh, that was really dumb of me."
Bach really Jason's father?
Well, because we never saw them together. No, I thought Bach was.
I thought Bach was Jason.
Yeah.
Like,
and I was like, that's how he got on the ship, and that's how
that would have been such a clever twist.
Like, oh, that's really dumb of me to think.
If he was some kind of like, if it was some kind of advanced holodecky thing that he could like transform what he looked like, and he was.
Listen, yeah. Also, Andrew. That would have been the least dumb option of all of the options. So
of the options they actually went with?
Yeah, like him being Jason would have been awesome, because then it would have been like, I was under your nose the whole time, but also there's no son to kill. But like, so that, don't beat yourself up. That would have been great.
I think it would have been better if Jason was likable, which Bach could not have pulled off. But let's pretend he did, and then Jason did Jason. Likable. Right. And then Jason was really likable, but then Jason was Bach, and now you're like, oh, not only do I lose this like lovable kid we've come to know, but also it's my enemy. Like that could have been that could have been another interesting twist that they would have never done, but it would have been more interesting.
Resolution would have been like, I was him the whole time. So just so you know, I was
gotcha.
Here. Bye.
Leaves.
It's like it's kind of like
right.
cute, but way less interesting. You're like, I was just here to stir up some shit and then leave, but like nothing.
So there is no revenge to be had. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, that's fair. So we don't find out what this secret information is that Beverly has to say to Picard. They just leave it on a cliffhanger. Next, we're on the bridge, and Data's detecting that signal, that special subspace magic. And he's like, the transporter, it's activating, and it's narrowing down on Jason's quarters. They're going to try to get him. And they're like, all right, we're ready for him. The security team sees Jason being beamed away, and Jason's all like freaking out because he's like half phased. He's like half dematerialized, half materialized. And he's looking at his hands, which would be freaky if you can see through your own skin. Like that would freak me out, which I wonder if panic has an effect on transporter stability, because I would freaking lose it if I could see through my hands and I'm not being materialized like immediately. Yeah. So they're like, okay, it's cool. We're ready for him. So they go to the transporter room. Picard goes to the transporter room because this was their big plan, that if Bach tries to beam Jason out, they'll just hold him there and beam him back into the transporter room. So now we see Jason kind of sort of half materialized in the transporter room. Picard runs up onto the transporter pads to tackle him, ? And before he gets there, Jason's beamed away. So they're
like, what do you do? Do you just run your hands right through him? You can't hold him.
Or what's he going to try to beam himself too? Like, I don't know what the plan. Maybe it's just that like panicky, got to do something.
Yeah, do something.
Okay. So back on the bridge, there's yet another probe. And we're like, ooh, how many of these probes do you guys have? And when the probe like hails or whatever, we see Damon Bach standing way too close to the camera.
Yep. Again.
Which is his style. And he's just like, today I will kill Jason. It will be our anniversary. Blah! And he backs up from the camera, and we see Jason is sitting on the bridge of his ship with like handcuffs on for some reason. And
yeah, like why? First of all, yeah, you're right. Hold on. Why you got handcuffs on him? Where the fuck is he gonna go? You got a bunch of guards with phasers on him.
He's on a Ferengi
where is
ship.
This fool going?
You beamed him here, like with no weapons.
He's already
and he's on your ship.
Yeah.
Could you just use a containment beam to like keep him right there? What are the handcuffs for?
Why don't we surround him in chains and slap him on a dolly, like some Silence of the Lamb shit? Like where are you going?
Hang him up from the wall. Like where's he going? Like he's not going anywhere.
To where if like instead of like a phaser, he like you're in handcuffs, and then he pulls out like a 9mm. All right, we're gonna kill him. Like why have all the old stuff if you have all the new stuff? Oh,
yeah, you're so
I know. Pick a lane, Bach. Pick a lane. So he's like, I'm going to kill him right now. And Damon Bach is threatening him with this super cool knife that I'm pretty sure belongs to the Duras sisters.
It sure does.
Right?
Sure
For sure.
does.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, that looks like
It's
the
the
knife we
future
just saw
one.
last week.
It's the future one that's got the Duras' son that she hasn't even had yet.
I was like, how did he get this ship? I guess this is when he was on the ship. He just snatched up this dagger to take with him back to his ship because he didn't come prepared with a weapon of his own. And
he
so
was just going to fly a banner past Jason that was going to say, "I'll kill you."
he was gonna kill him with a look. That's what he was gonna do. Just
With
Don't give me a
sparkles.
kitchen knife. Anything will do. I don't care. I just need something to kill this kid.
He's got some kitchen shears. He's
right. So you were
I will cut your
prepared
fingers
with
off.
like 3 disposable probes,
Oh man.
but
that's
no
so
weapon
good.
whatsoever to actually follow through.
no actual
Kill
plan.
Jason. Like,
They're like, I guess we could just beat him to death. Oh my gosh, Doc, that's really.
but he's so much bigger than us. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
okay.
Just beam him off the starboard bow and be like, "Boom, airlock."
He could do so many things, but for some reason he wants to walk around him in circles with a threatening dagger. While
With a
Picard
Klingon
watches.
dagger.
So Picard with a Klingon dagger. Well, Picard watches. So Data's like, all right,
This
we can.
episode sucks so hard.
Data's like, all right, now that we've gotten this last message from Bach, we can triangulate his location in space, and we know exactly where he is. And based off of what reference point? Well, okay. Anyways, we can triangulate it, and we're gonna find him. And
Don't try to find logic and reason in this.
right, not at this point. If we go at warp 9, we'll get there in 20 minutes, which will be plenty of time for him to kill Jason 3 times over. So Picard's like, all right, we can't wait for that. I need you to subspace beam me over there. And they're like, remember how we said it's like really dangerous and like you could die? He's like, yeah. Nope, no worries. I need to get over there. So they're like,
It's fine.
Okay.
It's this late in the series. I'm not going to die in a transporter accident. Just go. Like,
Right?
just
Up until
go.
this point, Picard doesn't seem like upset or really. He's just kind of like just really just
Calm.
like calm the whole time.
Too calm.
Like, do you care? Do you not care? What's happening here?
It's
This is
Starfleet
classic
Parents
Starfleet.
101.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where they're like, oh, my kid has been kidnapped. What a shame. And that's it. And you're like, what? Nothing more. No fear, no anxiety, no anger. No, that's it. We're just like, it's a shame. Yep, it's a
Yeah.
shame. And that's it. So he's standing on the transporter pad, about to do this ridiculously dangerous transport situation, holding his phaser up, which I was like, okay, that's new. We've never seen them go down with just like holding one phaser up, like they're saluting with it as they beam
Yeah.
over. Like, okay, like I guess that's a good area for it to
bring
be
a
on.
knife to a phaser fight.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I just realized that Jason is surrounded by other Ferengi who all have phasers. So it's like Damon Bach just chose like the least effective of all the weapons. It's like you got
He
a
wants them to
phaser,
suffer.
a grenade, a kitchen knife, and some craft scissors. And he just grabbed the craft scissors and he's like,
Yeah.
I will scallop this dude to death.
Right. Yep. The craft scissors. Yeah. The ones that just have like the wigglies. So they don't even cut the paper straight.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
crazy
and you're
Picard
like-
didn't just kill Picard the second he, hey guys, oh, he just died.
So-
There's a bunch of them.
So Jason, we
Oh.
go to we see on Damon Bach's ship, Jason is frantically trying to negotiate with Bach. Now, this whole entire episode, I thought Jason was a part of it because that's what I vaguely remember. But I'm like, wait, why is Jason negotiating? Does he not know Bach? I thought they were friends. I thought they were in on this whole thing the whole time.
That would have been great if they were in on it.
That's
Yeah,
what I
that would've been
totally, that's what I
awesome.
remembered.
Yeah.
They were in on it the whole time. And because Jason's a scamp, right? So Jason
Right.
was getting paid to like trick Picard to really get him on Bach's ship. And then they were going to like something to get money. And
Yeah.
so, but he was negotiating. I was like, wait, maybe Jason's not in on this. My first time thinking this the whole episode. This is the last 2 minutes. Maybe Jason's not in on this and he doesn't know what's going on. And honestly, Bach is going to kill this random guy. So he's like, come on, like I've got friends on K-More 5. They can really do something for you. And I was like, buddy, no, you don't. Like, no, you don't. But in any case, Picard beams over directly to the
in the
bridge.
nick of time.
And he's like, drop your weapons or Bach gets it. Because all the other Ferengi immediately pulled up their weapons, their
Yeah.
disruptors or whatever the heck their guns are called. And so then they're all like, well, we don't want you to kill Damon Bach, so I guess we'll put our weapons away. Really? No. Like, I don't
You're
think Ferengi would
outnumbered
do
like
that.
7-1. Like,
Shoot
just
him.
shoot him.
Yeah, just shoot him. Like, I don't think Ferengi would be like, not our beloved Damon. I think they'd be.
Yeah.
Oh, however, they did think that they were kidnapping this kid because Picard was going to pay ransom. So that would be
Yeah.
the reason to not shoot him so they can get their ransom. However, this situation has clearly gone south because if he's here, now you kidnap both of them. Now who's paying the ransom? Like
Yeah.
that would be the question. Is like, okay, maybe we can get it from Starfleet or like what's our other options here? But Picard drops the bombshell that because Bach is like, you drop your weapon or your son dies. But I thought his son was going to die anyway. So
Yeah.
what's the bargaining we're doing here?
You just cocked your gun again.
Haven't you spent the last 4 days appearing and disappearing just to give this exact message that his son's going to die? Now it's do this or your son will die. Right. So you're just not consistent, Bach. Like, I don't know.
And then look outside. You see that explosion? Where's Dana? Your son's gonna die. Yeah, Bach, I'm in front of you. You have a knife to my
stomach. No, you already got him in these really janky looking handcuffs. That he's trying to wiggle out of.
Read this fortune cookie and then interpret it from Greek and then put it into Morse code, and you'll see that your son's gonna die today.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god.
He's like, no, but we're here. So this is where Picard does this moment where, like, if this episode was remotely interesting, it would have been a great mic drop moment, but it's not interesting at all, so it's super predictable. Picard says, you know as well as I do that he's not my son.
Bum, 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 bum.
Question mark. It turns out that Bach has resequenced Jason's DNA, and the technique was flawed, and this is how he developed a neurological disorder. And I won't. This is so fucking cold. We're just gonna gloss over the fact that Bach gave this fucking kid a degenerative neurological disorder that he's gonna die from to make it appear like he's Picard's son. So he's gonna die anyway. And also, where was Jason during this resequencing? Did he do it in his sleep so Jason didn't know, or was he
beamed him from a cave and then injected him and beamed him back?
My God.
Like, how did Jason not know? Like, how are you going to resequence somebody's DNA and they don't know?
I never thought about that.
They didn't have to do like a 24-hour fast and then come into the lab with an empty stomach to do all. Like, did he do it from space with fairy dust?
Of course he did. He did it with the same fairy lights that he had in the probe.
Yeah, he did the sparkle lights.
Yeah, my thing was to Andy's point. Okay, if you resequence his DNA to try to match Picard's, and that resequencing somehow, magic, led to him getting this neurological disorder that will lead to paralysis and death.
So cool.
That, to Andy's point, that is how you kill Jason.
Yeah.
You tell Picard all of that when he's like at the very end stages or whatever, and you're like, I was behind this all along. And then they do the sequencing, and then they're like, oh my gosh, this was your son. Oh my gosh, he's dying. Oh my gosh, you only have 48 hours with him. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, he did already kill Jason. Like, he already killed him with this painful, awful way to do it. But like, he would rather use the Duras sisters' blade. Like, what is going on right now? There's some holes in this story big time. So
you poison the dude, and when he's a minute away from dying, you shoot him in the head. Like, okay,
right,
cool,
right, and you
are the worst villain ever. You need to go back to like Villain Academy because you fucking suck at your job.
Some retraining. So okay, so then Picard tells the whole crew like there never was a ransom. There was no profit in any of this. This was all about revenge. He's not even a real Damon. He was actually in prison, and he just tricked you guys all into thinking you're going to get money from this. And the other Ferengi are like, Bach, is he for real? Like, is this true? And he's like, no, it's not true. And then Picard's like, the Enterprise is on its way, and they'll be here any minute. And Bach's like, so they're not going to destroy the ship while you're on it? He's like, no, they're going to disable the ship and hold it right here until the Ferengi authorities arrive. And all of you are going to go to jail. And the other Ferengi are like, wait a minute. There's really no profit in any of that. So they turn their weapons on Bach, and since all he has is a knife, he has to drop it. If you saw our faces right now, you would see how unimpressed we are with all of this. So then we're all good. Next thing you know, we're in the hallway, and Jason's packed his little knapsack, and they're heading back to the transporter to give him back to his wonderful life on KMOR 5.
Yeah, which, by the way, they were like, should we drop you off at Earth? And Jason's like, no, these 22 and a half hours that I've spent with you, my pretend father figure, has made me rethink my life choices. And I'm going to go and straighten my shit out. And I'm going to clean up my credit. And I'm going to start working with the orphans or whatever the fuck. It's like, okay. Also, by the way, Beverly has able to completely reverse the damage of the neurological disease. So I was like, okay. So again, it's like, he's got a disease he's dying from. Fix it. Like, it's just before the news can sink in, we already have a solution. That's why there's no stakes. So Jason's going to straighten his life out now. And Picard gives him the archaeological back scratcher that Jason was very unimpressed with before. But now he's like, I can't possibly take this from you. And Picard's like, what the fuck? You just said this was useless. Like 42 minutes ago. But here you go. Now he's like, I want you to have it.
Now it's like, this beautiful token of remembrance between who are apparently strangers, between two strangers.
One time I met this guy for a few hours, and that's the stick he gave me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this
Like
is
I
stick
met
from
this
this
dude.
guy.
He slept with my mom 23 years ago, but he's not my dad.
But he thought
But
he
he
was,
thought
and
he
like
was
I
for,
thought
like,
he
a
was
second.
too, but like he wasn't. And then this guy tried to kill me because like he also thought I was his kid, but he actually poisoned me. But it's okay because that poison like
But
was
he
totally
knew I
cured.
wasn't his son because
instantly.
he had to do the DNA trick.
So that's where the stick came from. Like what? Okay, so now I guess they're friends.
Who
And
okayed
then-
this whole episode?
Yeah, and then Jason's like, well, if you're ever on this side of the galaxy, look me up. And Picard's like, definitely. And they will never speak to
Why?
each other again
Why?
for the
You're
rest
some
of their
kid I
lives.
thought was my son for a minute, and then we
Mhm.
realized it was a whole ruse that you suspiciously seem a little bit unaware of. Like, I feel like you kind of knew something was going on. Okay.
And in all this time, it's not like they had any great bonding other than the fact that Picard saved his life, which is a great way to bond people. But the whole rest of the time, it's just been very antagonistic. So it's not even like,
Well, they rock climbed a VB together, and then they talked about Miranda's death. So that's cool.
yeah. So they had a moment, like literally a moment, and then another life saving. They had two moments. But it's like there's no real connection here. I will say, like, going back to the paternity court thing, there was this one episode where there were two guys who could have been this lady's father, and she was like 23, like same age as this guy. And one of the guys she despised, and one of the guys she adored. And she was like, I really hope it's the guy that I love. Like, because he's been like, as soon as he found out that he could potentially be a father to her, he's been like hanging out with her on the weekends and taking her places and buying her kids clothes and just like legitimately spending time with her.
Cute.
Because he was like, I've never had a kid. Like, I'm so excited to have a kid. Like, had I known, he said the same thing Picard said, had I known, I would have been there.
Before you even give us the verdict on this, like what the truth was, I'm already way more invested in this story than I ever was in this bullshit episode.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, so what happened? Who was it though? Was it the good guy?
Yeah. So it ended up being the guy she hated. That was her biological
Oh,
father.
God damn it. See, I'm
that
already
was exactly
more
and that's exactly what she said. She was like, no. Like, I refuse. I don't even care. I don't even care what the DNA says. And that's kind of what the guy who she loved said as well. He was just like, well, like, I still feel like she's my daughter. Like, I still want to have this kind of relationship with her. And now it's like, is that weird? Is like that okay to do? Because like, we're not technically, now they're kind of like, well, what does our relationship look like now? If the only reason we had this bond is because I thought this was my daughter. Now do we pretend? Like, what do we do now? Right. And the other guy was just like, whatever. Because he was like a total jerk anyways. But like that, like if they had that in this episode, right, where they had this like father-son bond, even when they find out the DNA wasn't there, I feel like, but the bond is there. So like you can keep having that healthy, loving relationship. There's no reason why not to. There's no reason why not to, even if the DNA isn't there. But in this episode, there's none of that bond. So it's like these people will never talk to each other again because there's absolutely no reason. There's no connection between these two humans other than a mom that he's had a fling with on spring break 23 years ago.
Well, and Jason's kind of a piece of shit too. So like, we don't want Picard to hang out with this piece of shit. Now, if before
don't.
Jason left, he was like, hey, Diana, or, hey, Diana, I'm so sorry. That's just a way for me I wasn't ready to talk about my emotions. So that's what I had to do to like, okay, cool. And there's some saving grace a little bit. Oh, you're not just a piece of shit. But he just goes, all right, well, I'm going to go try to make things better. Bye. I don't know. And Bach,
but I have no tools to do that. So I'm going to try for 45 minutes and then just go back to my scampy ways. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe he'd be like, hey, Diana, maybe I can, message you sometimes and we can talk about, and she'd be like, oh, cool. And then, that shows some kind of progression. But I do feel like Bach does have a really good a money-making scheme because they're putting shit in through the shield, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ada and Geordi, two of the best minds in the whole universe, can't figure out how to stop it. He could sell that to the Romulans. He could sell
the Cardassians.
Hell
yeah.
It just,
And literally, he should sell it to all of them.
Yeah,
the Romulans and the Cardassians and the Klingons and everybody and make a bunch of money.
Drop a grenade and leave. And then, all right, that's, so it's just weird that they don't think about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
He could sell it to the Bajoran. He could sell it to the Packlids. They might figure it out. Sell it to the Maquis. Absolutely. He could come out the richest Ferengi.
They might figure it out. We still don't have a lot of faith in the Packlids. They can't even trim their eyebrows, girl. How are they going to get through shields? Like, come on, man.
I wanted to ask you too. So when they're talking about it and Picard's like, well, he fired on me first. And they go, well, you were in Ferengi space. And he goes, well, I didn't know. I kind of feel like that is Picard's fault, kind of. I mean, how does he not know where he's at? And he's like, captain of the ship. But I don't know enough about the Ferengi and Federation.
Oh, yeah, no. It's totally his fault that he didn't know where he was. But what happened was the Ferengi ship, like, fired on him. They were like, the rules of acquisition or whatever, we're going to, like, fire on you, disable your ship, and then capture your ship. And so Picard was like, no, you can't have my ship. So they got in a firefight, and Picard won the fight because the Ferengi ship exploded. So Damon Bach is like, you murdered my son heartlessly. And it was like, no, it was a battle. And it wasn't like your son was the only casualty. Like everybody on that Ferengi ship died, and a whole bunch of people on the Stargazer too. So it wasn't like a personal, like I walked up and shot your son. It wasn't like that.
For sure. The Ferengis and Federation are there for the most part. It seems like they're pretty like violent towards each other.
Yeah, it's kind of like you do your thing, we'll do our thing, and just leave us each alone.
Yeah, they had this thing in season 1 where they explained that the Ferengi were like this mysterious people that they had no connection with. Like they never talked to them. They didn't even know what they looked like. They didn't understand their technology. They knew they were technologically similar, but they had like no connections with the Ferengi at all, is what they were saying in season 1. By the time we get to season 7, Quark is running the Dabo tables over on DS9.
Yeah.
So now we're all buddies. But in season 1, like we don't know anything about this mysterious race.
They've got electric pool noodles.
I wasn't sure if they had like a treaty that like I don't know about, but like it's just weird that they just shot on sight to see, when they saw a starship. So I don't know.
Yeah, are they a part of the Federation? Are they allies? Are they enemies? Question mark, question mark, question mark. They seem to be their own people.
Yeah.
And
if I was the guy, I'd be like, well, Picard, but I mean, he was just protecting his people, but you didn't know where you were.
No, he was totally, he was totally wrong. He should have known where he was. But what is that? Yeah. But this 15-year vendetta?
You weren't on some, you weren't on some shitty little freighter that was like losing power and you guys just had to like get out, right? Like you were the captain of a Federation ship
cruising in the wrong person's space.
Fucking sensors. Like you know where you are. You should know where you are. Like if you can detect 8 human lives between the age of 20 and 30, 2 kilometers below the surface. You're telling me your map quest doesn't work?
Yeah.
Y'all don't know where you were?
I don't know where I was.
Yeah. I didn't know where I was. I was just walking down the street and all of a sudden they just started shooting. So I had to kill them all. How's that on me?
That also leads me to this is the train of thought I always land at, where it's like, if you are part of a military organization and get into a skirmish, you're running the risk yourself of being part of the military, right? Where it reminds me of that moment in the movie Troy where Achilles is like, he killed my cousin, and the high priestess is like, how many sons and brothers and uncles and fathers have you killed, Achilles? Like, how many will never come home because of you, right? So it's like, yeah, you killed my son, but it's like, again, you're in a firefight. Like, how many sons and daughters and nieces and nephews and uncles and grandparents have you also killed? Like, perhaps accidentally, but like, it's collateral damage as part of being in a battle.
Yeah, it's like those blood feuds, right? Where it's like, you killed my brother, so I kill your brother. Now you killed my other brother, so I'm going to kill your other brother. So it's like, okay, well,
it's an endless cycle of violence. Yeah, it's like you're just, you're just going to keep losing family members if you don't stop, and none of those losses are going to bring back the person you're missing. What you need is a different type of catharsis. Killing so and so will not bring so and so back.
Exactly.
Yeah, and in my mind, like nothing's going to really make it 100% better because nothing's going to bring them back. And to your point, and to your point of that, of like this like blood feud, again, there's no profit in revenge. So it just doesn't align for me with the Ferengi. This would be more Klingon, because Klingons do have blood debts and blood vendettas, but even Klingons, they don't just have blood debts just for funsies. Like they also have some kind of reason, like, oh, it's because even in the council, when the council had all these like vendettas or whatever, they were like, yeah, but we still need to run the council. Like we still need to do what's best for Klingon. So we still need, like there's still some bigger, higher ideals there and goals. There was power for power's sake, but there was also like my house, my lineage, my future, this whole like segment of the population, like how we deal with the Federation. There was bigger things at stake. So for me, this like vendetta never made sense. And it makes even less sense that we're bringing back season 1 nonsense to season 7. Like, especially we have like 4 episodes left. This is how we want to go out, people.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking. This is what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, okay, if middle of season 5 is lagging, you can throw this in. But this is the high note you're supposed to be leaving on. It feels so reminiscent of season 1. And it's frustrating because season 1 was shitty because they hadn't flushed out their show, their ideas and their relationships, right? But now we've had yesterday's Enterprise, for crying out loud. We've had Best of Both Worlds with Locutus aboard. Like we have had such peaks, right? And then to be ending on a valley like this.
Measure of a Man,
Measure of a Man, great episode. But
all of these are so great, right? Like they dive into like really deep topics, and then this just felt like Neutral Zone, where the Ferengi or the Romulans are like, we're back, but we're not really. It's like, okay, why are you fucking wasting my time? Come on, Star Trek.
We're back, and then we don't see you for 2 more seasons. So you're not
we
back.
deserved better than that as
You're
viewers.
still on
Like, we
hiatus.
really did. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. We had one of our listeners DM us, and they were like, season 7 is kind of like a roller coaster. It's kind of hit or miss. You don't know what you're going to get. They were like, I'm sad that it's ending, but it's also kind of like, I never know when it's going to be a good episode. And I was like, you and me both.
Yeah.
It's sad that it's ending, and it's a little more sad that it ends on things like this. Like, this episode is lame. Next week's episode is lame. Like, we're just gonna, and I don't even remember the last, like, All Good Things, because I don't ever rewatch it, because it's like just sad that it's like the last of the last.
Yeah.
So I only have like glimpses in my memory of what even happens in those 2 episodes. So I hope they're really good, but I don't know. And it just is like anxiety inducing. Like, are we going to end on this note where I'm like, wah, wah, wah?
I mean, well, I will say this, even if the episodes are really good, I remember a lot more, I think, than you maybe do, but even if the episodes are really good and we end on like the best episode of ever, it's still going to be sad because TNG's over.
Yeah, but like sad versus disappointed are different. So that's why I'm like, it's okay if it's sad, but it's good, but I don't want it to be disappointing.
Yeah, and like we can talk more about it. Obviously, we will talk more about it when we get there, but it is a lot of like artificial stakes have just been reintroduced, right? Where Q is like, I'm back, and the trial against humanity never ended.
I'm back.
And like this time it's for real and the stakes are high, but also it's like those stakes, the trial of humanity has not been there since the pilot episode.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
so it's like we forgot about
back
that.
To this again.
We're supposed to still care about that? I thought that was over. Oh, that's
exactly.
Still going. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there's nothing we can do about it but live our lives. Well, that's what we were going to do anyways. Okay.
Right. So, Andrew, what are your final thoughts on this week's episode? I feel like we probably already kind of could guess, but what are they?
I'll probably give it like a warp 4, I guess, out of like 9.
That's pretty generous.
Well, the only reason why is because I think Picard is such a good actor that I think this whole episode was boiled down just to have Picard give great monologues. And he gave like 2 or 3 really awesome ones. When he's talking to Crusher, I love their conversation together. The story was lacking, of course. I didn't care much for that other character, but I think Picard's acting is so good in this that it elevates it a little bit. But I don't think people really need to watch this one. You could probably just fast forward to his monologues and then save some time. But I mean, it was, Picard is great. That's so fucking good.
Yeah, Sir Patrick Stewart, my God, what an absolute actor.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Like, you don't really need to watch this one. You could probably read like the 4-sentence description of it somewhere online and be like, oh, that's what happened. And that's probably the amount of satisfaction you'd have from watching it. Would probably equal that. My final thoughts was, it was okay. And it had some really cool technology, which I still stand by. That was so cool. I wish we could have seen more of that. Not in this episode. I feel like we saw more than enough of it in this episode with like the beaming through shields and the subspace probe and the fireworks in space. But I would have liked to see that technology introduced maybe at the beginning of season 7 and then from time to time come back. That would have been cool to be like, oh, it's another subspace. Oh, somebody else has the technology. Oh, like that would have been really cool. So that's like my one high note about this entire episode was I thought those pieces of technology were super neat. But the rest of the episode, I was like, it's okay. Yeah. What about you, Andrea? What were your thoughts? Your final thoughts?
To sum up my final thoughts, I feel like I would need to send a probe that explodes, that shows a shower of light sparks that just spells out, I've wasted everybody's time. Like that's all this was. Again, it was like really lacking stakes, right? It's like, I have a son, he's in danger, we have to find him. Found him, he's a rogue and he has his barriers up. Oh my gosh, he has this really like Aladdin innocent criminal past. Now we have a heart-to-heart. There's a threat. We neutralize. He's going to turn his life around. Like everything happens so fast that you're like, should I be worried? No. Should I be worried? No. It's like they're really, the artificial stakes were not there. Other than that, I will say I really did enjoy the directing in this episode. Les Landau did a great job. Like there were a lot of like different shots where it was a familiar setting, but found and shot in a way that was like new and interesting, which I enjoyed. Other than, of course, like Bach's intensely close like view screen where it's like you can see all the pores on his forehead and you're like back up like 15 solid steps. But Shereese did mention it was very funny. Like before we hit record, she's like, this is how I feel on Zoom meetings all the time where everybody's far away. And she's like, hello, humans.
And every time
that in a
whatever
meeting.
you brought up Spock being close, I think of the hello you, and I keep that was so funny.
The way they say humans. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I'm glad we don't ever have to see Jason again. It's just such a whatever type of, I'm just more upset that this is kind of the notes that we are ending on. It's like, gosh, this would have been okay in season 2. It really would have been fine in season 2.
It would have been
not fine
perfectly
in
fine in season 2.
Yeah.
I would have been annoyed as heck if it was in season 3.
Yeah, because season 3 was so flippin' strong.
So good. It was so
this,
good.
like, regressive backslide here? Andrew, we have had so much fun having you on. You always you are so freaking funny. Can you tell our listeners where they can find more of you? Because you're definitely worthy of the follow.
Yeah, well, definitely check out Notable Nostalgia. By the time this episode comes out, I think our Frasier episode will be out, and we had Andrea on, and it was awesome. That's going to be episode 85 or 86. So check that out. We talk Frasier. But yeah, Notable Nostalgia, it's a lot of fun. It's a 90s podcast. We talk all things 90s.
It's so fun.
Yeah. And if you have any cool 90s life hacks, send me a message on Instagram at notably_Andy, and you could be the listener of the week. So yeah.
That's really cool. So like, what are some good like 90s life hacks that people have sent you?
The best one I've gotten so far is the double-decker taco. They don't sell anymore at Taco Bell. So someone messaged me and she goes, hey, on your episode on fast food, you were talking about that. If you get a bean and cheese burrito, no cheese, and a taco, you just put it over and it tastes just like it. And it does taste just like a double-decker taco. Awesome. So I had to make her the, listener of the week. And so that was the best one. So any cool life hacks like that, let me know,
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. All I ever really remember from the 90s is that I wanted a light bright so bad and I never got one. And then my brother got a light bright and I basically just hijacked it. I was like, you're doing it wrong. Let me show you how to do it. And then I just took it and made that fucking clown. That was on the box. My brother was like, can I play with my toy now? I was like, not yet.
I'm almost done with it. Just give me a few more years. Yeah. That's so funny. I definitely had the light bright. I also remember I had a Teddy Ruxpin, which was the coolest thing in the world. And then I accidentally broke it because I was a little kid. And I was so sad. I used to love Pop Rocks and soda. So I gave some to Teddy Ruxpin because I thought he would like it too. And then it glued his little mouth together and he couldn't talk anymore. Oh, no. And then I was so sad because he was like my best friend. And also so scared to tell my parents because I knew I was going to get in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, no. So let me
so much trouble.
See, those stakes were so much higher than this episode. Those fucking stakes were higher. Fucking stakes are higher than this episode. Also, I also really wanted a Teddy Ruxpin too. I really did.
Those were like the 2 times in life when my parents got me like good gifts that I don't even know how they found the money for it, but they got me the Teddy Ruxpin and they got me the light bright. Those are the 2 things I remember from TV that I own that were on TV. And I was like, oh my God, it was so exciting.
Dude, anyways, I feel like they just don't make toys like they used to anymore. I mean, toys now are all like electronic and stuff and it's all Nintendo Switch, but the ability to take little plastic pegs and stick them through the black paper into the light bright so it makes a pattern when it lights up. There's just something so like tactile and like practical effects about it where now it's all just CGI everything for games, but like, man, those were the days. They really were.
So on that note, check out the podcast. Like it's super fun. It's just like fun good time memories.
It really is. And I'm super excited that I got to be part of the Frasier episode because I love Frasier so much. And we broke down a really, really fun classic episode. So that was a good time. So thank you for having me on for that. And we're so glad you got to be on with us for this one. Yeah.
Anytime you two want to be on Notable, let us know. Because right after the first time we recorded episode 80, the Star Trek movie one, we were like, that's like the best we vibed with anybody. It's crazy. You two are so much fun to talk to. So yeah, anytime, even if you have an idea of an episode, you're like, hey, I liked this in the 90s. Would you be interested? We'll say yes. So just let us.
Oh my God.
Anytime.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for nerding out with us on this like hate fest this week. Next week, we are breaking down season 7, episode 23, Emergence. Thanks for nerding out.
Also known as Hate Fest Part 2.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.